Hello everybody, my name is Joshua Bishop. Today I'm going to be showcasing Mobile Suit Gundam Encounters in Space. This was a game I used to speedrun a few years ago. The previous videos I have of it weren't in the best quality, and some of it was lost to copyright claim, but today I decided I'm going to get a proper recording and I'm going to showcase this game, and I have a timer this time, even though there's going to be a little bit of a desync. But today I'm doing an 80% all story missions run where I'm going to go through all three main modes in this game, and we're going to start with Thoroughbred mode. Its timer will start as soon as I hit new game, but the way the Elgato works, I didn't realize that when streaming this, it's not really the best to keep up with timers in real time. So the timer is going to be 2 seconds ahead, but it's going to be 2 seconds ahead. The video is what I mean, but if you timed it as soon as you hear the new game get pressed on here, I'm sure you'd get around the same time I'd have. Maybe not exactly, but you should have the same hour, minutes, seconds to the T. But anyway, good chance for me to showcase the game, and I hope you guys have fun watching this. I'm going to try to treat this explanation kind of like a marathon run, where I'm going to try to explain everything I'm doing and let you in on what exactly is going on in the run, and hopefully I cast this game in a positive light. So this game, a little background on it. This was released in 2003. It's a third-person shooter, and if you ask me, for us fans in North America, for the very few of us that play the Gundam games, this is one of the most beautiful games I've seen, especially for a game that was released in 2003. The developers really did a great job on the game. They nailed the little nuances correctly. The Gundams look beautiful. The art looks beautiful. They really pushed the PS2 to its absolute limits with this game, and I can't get enough of looking at this game and seeing how beautiful it is as a Gundam fan. It's absolutely gorgeous. So anyway, a lot of these missions are all going to kind of fall under the same ballpark of objectives. Destroy battleships when you have to, taking out certain units, surviving in battle, taking out a certain wave of units before you can advance to the next stage, so on and so forth. So as you saw, you're able to call supports. In this case, it's a Gundam pilot that's going to be with us, and he's actually very useful, and the supports in general are very useful. While I go around destroying these battleships, he's going to hold these mobile suits at bay. We have to wait for the second battleship to get in a certain distance for some reason, and I think if you let the battleships get too far away and you let them get out of combat, they will contact their allies. You don't want them doing that. So while I destroy these battleships, this Gundam is just doing work, taking care of the other enemy mobile suits, and then when I can finally join the fight, it just goes by so smooth. The only downside, though, is that when you're trying to go for speed on this, because most times the special attacks, which we'll go over a little later, when in Mission 3 they'll really start to shine. But as you'll see in a few instances here, we're going to do a special attack on a few enemies where it'll just speed clearing up waves, and it saves you a lot of time. But the risk of doing it here so early on is that you are susceptible to dying if you're not careful. So you kind of have to weigh the risk with the reward, where if you get it perfect, you can clear the enemies easily, but you're running the risk of having a game over. And if you get a game over at all in this run, you may as well kill it, because the load times coming back from game overs are just insufferable. You lose minutes, basically. So the game's going to kind of go through the same formula, where you're going to see a briefing screen, then you'll see a launch, and you can skip the briefings, you can skip the launches, you can get through them relatively quickly. You'll play the mission, it'll get to a point where it'll end. You'll see a cutscene, then it'll give you a score, then it'll ask if you want to save, and then it's just rinse and repeat. But fortunately, all the little minute stuff, you can get through that very quickly, and the main meat is all missions and how there's varied difficulties of degrees to them. Yes, a lot of the objectives are the same, but the way you can just, the variance in difficulty, the risk behind all the strats you can use for this game, the diversity of the mobile suits and what exactly they do are great. So this mission 2 right here, we're just going to go straight for the ships. We want to go for the one on the far right first, and then the one in the middle, because they're going to be heading out of bounds. while that Musai we're seeing in the distance is going to head toward the next 3 we're going to see. It's a great route for speed. It's something I forgot about in my first few days, and probably why I ended up with my first run back being 6 minutes behind my old PB. We want to try to go for the ships. When you're fighting battleships, you want to try to go for the ones that are going to fire a lot of missiles, like the Musais. Later on, it'll be the Salamis ships and the Magellans. While these Pazaks right here, they're not really going to fire anything. They're just transport ships. They don't really have any weapons to them. And again, we called our support because we have mobile suits in the area. The support will do a great job holding off the mobile suits while you go and clear the mission and you move on. And you see right there, there's going to be a lot of those gold splits. I'll just go ahead and be honest with you right now because I was running against old splits. I didn't have my original splits because I have a new computer that didn't have the old splits and I wasn't smart enough to save those. But I think with this run right here, it's just, I mean, we'll get to it. But if you look at that right now, we're on a great start. So now we go into mission 3 where we have escort missions. And a little bit about escort missions. You want to be careful about certain units in escort missions because, and this is my point about battleships, when you have to protect a certain battleship, if you see an enemy battleship going for your battleship that you have to protect, you need to focus that battleship first, because if you don't, it's going to fly in close to your battleship. It's going to do tons of damage. You don't want that to happen. Take care of the battleships first. Absolutely vitally important. So I mentioned earlier that the special attacks on this mission will shine, and it's because, as you'll see right here, right away from the first wave, even though a lot of these guys are ignoring you and flying straight to your Gundam ally, that's to your benefit too, because they all spawn so close to each other that you're able to switch around targets and you can go get those units that are trying to fly after your ally. It's just an easy way to clear, especially when early on you get such a useful special attack. So to go over the main weapons of this game, you know, you have your beam saber as a main secondary, you have your beam rifles, your bazookas, your machine guns. They're your real main weapons. Your sub weapons we're not going to go over too much, but some of them can be useful. In the cases of the Gundams, the Vulcan machine guns aren't really good until about the end of the run, where one unit specifically uses Vulcan machine guns, and they're absolutely powerful for some reason, which, hey, that's the one time they get to be useful. And then, but there are a few times that sub-weapons are really good, but again, they're not really going to happen till the later parts of the run. And then when I'm not using the special attacks, sometimes I'm flying around dashing with the beam rifle, sometimes I come up close with the beam saber. So it's just all about managing your time, managing your distance, knowing where you're at, knowing how much beam ammo you have, and also using your thruster gauge. So we protected our friend long enough to be able to destroy one battleship in beautiful blazing glory, but it cost all his generator's power to do it. And once again, we're going to try to use these special attacks as much as we can, especially since the map has now shrunk on us and most of these units are going to stay out of bounds. But using the Gatling gun in this instance, because that's what this special attack really is, it's a Gatling gun firing out like a machine gun, does tons of damage. We're going to use it as much as we can because it will help us clear a lot. We're still going to take a lot of damage if we're not careful, but we do absorb a few more blows better than we could in Mission 1. Again, we call a support. The support is still going to be very useful. He gives us damage, just support damage, but mostly for this part of the run, he's just along for the ride. But you still get somebody who's shelling out damage, and if he's really useful, he's going to make taking out units that much easier. Or he might have shields taking out. You go on. I mean, it's just, I do love the fact that compared to, let's say, Dom and Gears of War, for those of you who played that game, when you get to that final boss fight with General Ram, and you see how Dom just runs in and suicides and doesn't even do any damage while you're trying to beat the game on Insane, that is definitely a big thing. So, a caveat here with Mission 3 I need to mention. I want to make sure we don't get the A rank or the S rank. And I mean, we'll have to get that mission if we'll have to get the A or the S rank if we want to do an all A or S rank run. But the reason we don't want it is because the what if scenarios, which are mission 4 and mission 5 what if, rather than true mission 4 and true mission 5. The what if scenarios, mission 4 is going to be about the same one as you're going to see here, but mission 5 takes you all the way to Abalaku, and it's a longer battle, it's a longer fight, there's more going on, and it gets around the fact that you can't quite skip what's going to happen in mission 5. You don't really have as fast of an ending, and even then, if you look at the canon behind this, the G04 is considered dead in canon, so it only makes sense that we consider this the true any percent all story missions. Again, we get the battleship out of the way because this mission we have to protect the Thoroughbred, and we're going to try to get the ace pilot. It's not really an ace pilot, but he packs a wallop and he has a lot of health, so you want to try to get ace pilot units and battleships as far as ranking of strength. You want to try to get them out of the way as fast as you can. Now for this mission, you'll notice that all of the enemies are spawning far away, and most of them are targeting your battleship. So rather than try to throw the Hail Mary with the beam rifles, sometimes I'm just going to burst directly to them. So this mission especially, not overheating the thruster gauge is especially important. And there can be some annoyances where you try to thrust at them and you'll bump off the mobile suits, which if there is one thing I do love but hate about this game, it does have some semblance of physics. So if you run straight into something that you shouldn't run into, you kind of bounce off it like a piñata, and your momentum takes you back one way or another, and it can end up doing damage. Somehow, getting hit while being thrust straight into a ship will make you lose all your health, so you have to be careful. Now, this is the only time in the game this is going to happen, that you have to destroy the engines of the battleship before you can damage the battleship itself and destroy it, the Musai, as I call it, but, you know, battleship to make things easier. We clear it, we get out of the way, we're done, and now we enter one of the biggest saves there is in the run as soon as we get to mission 5. Again, we try to skip these cutscenes as fast as we can, and I should mention, you saw there was an S rank right there, but the only time in the run that we really care about what our rank is this early on. This is why I decided to go ahead and put it at the forefront and do it. And not only that, it's one of the shortest modes to run, whereas white base, that'll take about an hour, and ace pilot mode takes the longest to complete. So in mission 5 of Thoroughbred, the final mission, we get a big time save here in the second phase, but the first phase is thankfully short. We needed to get past the first 3 mobile suits. They're pretty easy to take care of, so we'll make that happen and then go from there. But this will be the end of the mode, and this is just one of the best times that we get to showcase a save. There's plenty of saves you can make in the game, but more of them are going to happen in white base mode, kind of, sort of. Ace pilot mode has a few cool saves. There's a few cool saves peppered around the game, but for the most part, this game is just playing it straight through and trying to complete it in the fastest time possible. So, the right way to do this mission is to defeat that Brawl Bro and move on, but you can get a good ending and a bad ending. The bad ending is significantly faster to get. We are supposed to protect the Shive while we destroy the big Brawl Bro, but instead, we're just going to blow the Shive up and go straight into the ending. And the good thing is, even though your score is punished for it, we don't care about our score, because as soon as the game sees that that ship is gone, the mission is over, and you don't get a game over. This is the one time that actually an ally died, well, the first of 2 times. The first of 2 times that an ally actually dying is to your benefit, and you don't get a game over from it. So that's Thoroughbred mode. We got through there in under 13 minutes. You see we're ridiculously ahead because I'm running against old splits. I had a 238. I'm running on 244 splits. So to be running on that right now is pretty good. So now we go into the second of the 3 modes, which is white base mode. And me personally, if you were going to run one certain section of this game, this would be it right here. You do a lot of damage. The missions are relatively short except for toward the end. And you're just gonna see. You're just gonna see exactly what I'm talking about. When you play as the Gundam, the original Gundam, you're gonna feel like Jesus. Look at this. 2 shots, mobile suit, done. That Musai, check this out. About 4 or 5 shots, even though we had help from gun cannons and a G fighter, or no, it's a core booster actually. This is the movie version playing in the video game. But we do so much damage. So I should mention right away, this mode will also have a fair bit of auto-scrolling to it, as it will play through the main battles on Solomon and Abawaku. It plays through the main TV series. There will be a fair bit of auto-scrolling to it. They call this route tube mode in the game, and this mode right here, the actual third-person mode, or as I call it, actually getting to play the game. This is Battlesphere. It's 360 movement. You get to target kind of like you want, and if there is one thing I would like to say negatively about this game, is that the targeting system can be really jank. But as you see, we get through this phase relatively easy, and now we're going or heading toward one of the more annoying parts of the game. One of the times where RNG can really just slap you in the face. It can be great to you, or it can just be like, you know what? You don't need to have a good run today. And sometimes the targeting system does that. Sometimes forgetting your win condition does that. Sometimes, well, we'll go over a little of the annoyances later on and how I've personally had runs die. But not relatively here, but this could really screw up your early game right here. This fight right here with the big rope. So it's a mobile armor. It flies around. It doesn't really stay in one spot. But that can be an annoyance. So the good news is that most of its pattern is predictable. It will fly at you, fly around, go to the other side, come back, attack again, rinse and repeat. The RNG part comes into when he just starts dive bombing you directly. Sometimes the AI will act like, oh crap, I used too much thruster, and then it'll get to the point where it gets really slow. That's when it's really good. Then, at that point, you can unload with the special attacks, which the Gundam has really good special attacks. As you saw right there, we got good RNG. He overthrusted. He stayed in place. So I was able to get a free bazooka shot in. But when you see stuff like that happen, you're not really going to have a good time. But we just rinse and repeat this until we get them down. And that's where the annoying thing can happen. See, we got it again, but as you saw, I was late to the party. Because that's the curse of the targeting system in this game, too. You have to be aware that most of the AIs, aside from battleships, will barrel roll. So once they barrel roll, they become untargetable. And then you have to manually target them back again, hit the L1 or L2 button, I believe. You have to hit one of those to retarget them and go back on the offensive. So with white base mode, you also have to be careful because this is the one time that the formula kind of breaks, like you saw from Thoroughbred mode. Because now before the briefing screens, more times than not until the end, you have to hit start to get past the cutscene, then you go right into the briefing. But, I mean, it kind of makes the game go a little bit faster rather than just pressing X to get through everything, go straight into briefing and going from there. That's just me, though. I'm not sure, but hey. So we go into Mission 2, where if it wasn't clear in the first mission that you are Demigod King Jesus, it will be clear as of this point forward. And I just love how if you do watch the cutscene after this, just gloriously, there are 12 of these guys. Actually 12, because you get 5,000 points for shooting them. If you get 60,000, you have literally taken down all 12 suits on your own. And I like how he counts along. And I do think that is a thing from Journey to Jaburo as well in Mission 2, if I'm not mistaken, with Amuro as well. So I'm not sure if that's intentional, but I do like that was put in the game as well. And as you see, I got 11. I tried to get 12, but my gun cannon ally took care of the other one. So this is a time where knowing your win condition is good. These two Zakus right here, we don't really care about what's going on with them. We're just going to fly past them, go straight after that Shive. See, those Zakus don't really do damage to you. Nobody really and truthfully in white base mode is going to do damage to you. Because, I mean, it makes sense. Because in the context of the series, your mobile suit is so far technologically advanced that you could get hit with a frying pan to death and still only have just a scratch. So we take out that battleship, and then we're going to move on. We're going to clean up these Zakus if we can. And then we go on from that point forward. So now we're going to enter one of the longer missions of the game. This is the Battle of Solomon. One of the major mission points from the Gundam series. One of the major plot points. So, as you know, the Federation and Zeon, they had this whole context. The whole context of this game is based around the One-Year War era. For you Universal Century fans out there, so the guys who like Zeta Gundam, Victory Gundam, Gundam Unicorn, Double Zeta, the original Mobile Suit Gundam, Stardust Memory. It doesn't exactly encompass everything from that Universal Century area, but from the One-Year War and sprinkles of the Blue Destiny side story and Stardust 0083 make their way in here. But what's going to happen here with this mission is we can have breaks in the route depending on what happens, but this is this is the first time playthrough. This is not new game percent. In new game percent, we would have so beating the game once, for those of you unaware of what new game percent means. So the first time beating the game through, you're not going to have very many enemies spawning. You're not going to have different what-if routes pop up. You're not going to be able to get as many points as you can. So getting all or S ranks through your first playthroughs of the game is not possible. You kind of have to, you have to beat the game one time to be able to get the all A or S rank runs going. We're in Battlesphere mode for 1 minute to clear out the enemies, and then from here we're just going to enter this lull where we're on the fortress, collecting a lot of points using the multi-target. So I should mention the multi-target can be useful in some aspects, but more times than not, it's not going to be used widely during the run. The reason for that is because even though you don't use a lot of ammo to do multi-target, you don't use ammo at all, actually. What am I saying? You don't use any ammo, you don't use any resources to do multi-target. However, you do less damage. So it's just easier to directly focus the units more times than not. But in white base mode, multi-target does have a good use, especially in these missions like this. It kind of keeps things interesting, and you can just see how things die in one hit versus dying in two, which is great until we get to certain points like this. So a lot of this is, there's not really a lot of times that's going to happen during the run where we're going through Route 2 mode. Thankfully, the auto scroll parts of it, which is this, are all mostly contained to white base mode, and they are few and far between from this point forward. They're just brief, let's get to the area and let's go.
I gotta hand it to myself, I'm pretty good.
So for this part right here, we're going to see two ships. We're going to completely skip the Musai because we want to get a certain route. We're going to go inside the fortress. I want to go directly for that ship right there, the Papua, which same thing as the Pazak. It's a transport ship, but the easy thing about it is that when I destroy the wings, and they're easy to get, the ship goes away. So I'll clear out a few of these mobile suits that I can. I'll get inside the fortress, and if I've done this right, I will get the route I want. I'm going to shoot the door open, and as you see right here, there are some humorous things that can happen, and some cool things that you don't really get to experience in the Gundam game. Just another layer that really makes me enjoy this game, and adds a little more that you didn't really see in the original series, and especially when you see everything blowing up in sight. It just, if you've never seen the original series, you're going to be spoiled rotten watching this, because you're going to think like, my god, this is so cool. But then when you see the actual series, it's like, that's kind of a letdown. But you know what? I still had fun a few times watching it, I'll be honest with you. you know, I was disappointed watching the original series because I was so spoiled on this because I was already like, man, this is so cool. This is like stuff you see out of Mission Impossible, you know? So as you see right here, I got the route I wanted. If I would have went after the Musai, I would have went up. And if I would have went up, the area I would have landed in would have been with a Zanzibar class battleship with mobile suits spawning. While yes, I could clear that very easily and just focus on the battleship, this mission is very important for making sure that your health and your resources are in good shape. You don't want them to be in low hit shape because the final boss at the end of this, if you're not careful, will carve you up. And if it ain't him that does it, it will definitely be the enemy mobs that spawn with him. So this area is a storage unit, whereas instead of fighting the Zanzibar, we go right in here, we shoot up a few mobile suits, and we're done. We're done. We don't have to destroy a battleship. We don't have to worry about spawns. We just go get the few mobile suits and we move on. That's what I really like about being in that area. I unintentionally discovered that during a run. I was sitting here like, you mean I've played this game this long, and after all this time, not even I knew this area existed. And it just blew my mind. So anyway, we destroy the battleship first, as you see there. And sometimes, I should mention this, sometimes the units will be, and so the enemies do behave the same way that you do, whereas you'll have design route tube mode, design battlesphere, you know, when they're able to move, and sometimes they'll be on fixed patterns. Rather than trying to shoot them from far away, I'll try to get up close to those guys because a closer shot, duh, guarantees better accuracy. Rather than try to Hail Mary shots and burn all my energy and waste time, I just fly to them and take them out. So I do that, I shoot my way out, and then we're slowly getting to the big part. I look at my health, I look at my shield, I see I'm in good shape. Now I want to make sure that for the next phase ahead, I have 3 special attacks because a big save is coming up, and really and truthfully, even if it's your first time running the game, if you can't see that time save coming from 7 miles away, something is wrong with you. But, you know, I said that about myself, like, you know, I just want to play it out just casually, and then when I saw I could just skip it entirely in the speedrun, I was like, man, this is pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure that's how a lot of speedrunners feel when they look at something and go, you know, I did like playing this casually, but sometimes it's just a pain. I just want to skip it. So we want to clear the Zaku's out as fast as we can. What's annoying about this part right here during these big missions is that you have enemy aircraft flying around, you have turrets on the base, it will take your attention away. So now we enter the freest skip of the game with the Big Zom. We wait for him to stop, and then we just start firing specials on him. If we do enough damage, we will get to the point. And then you hear the voice line right there. There's a lot of cues in the game as far as cutscenes or things blowing up or voice lines. There's a lot of cues that let you know whether the mission has been completed or whether you're moving on to the next phase, so on and so forth. It's very nice to save the time instead of trying to fight him through the eye field. Just unleash the specials, and now you fight him without any eye field. So any way you approach this is not wrong, but you also need to be careful. I've started to learn sometimes you may want to take the mobs first. And this was a better example of seeing that I really need to take care of the Rickdoms first, because if you get too close to the Big Zom right away, if you fly straight to it, it will go out of bounds. And you would rather have that thing inbound so you can keep wailing on it. But fortunately, the target is so freaking massive that you could be far away that you would be anywhere else on any other mobile suit. And because the thing is so massive, you're still shelling out tons of damage. The only risk is having those Rickdoms come in and be an annoyance. And you'll see later on in the run that sometimes you have to stop worrying about the objective and start worrying about your health, make the investment on your health, and take care of the mobs before you start going after the big fish like the battleships or the ace pilots or anything like that. Well, I say the ace pilots, but really and truthfully, if there is an ace pilot, I don't care about any of the mobs going on. I need that ace pilot out of my way because he might kill me before they kill me. So anyway, we get through him, and now we're moving on to the battle with M'Quve at Texas Colony. And there is a potential for a save in the second part of this mission, and this is the part of the mission where you start to realize the mobs can be annoying. So to get M'Quve to come out so we can get through the first phase, we have to destroy these battleships right here. Otherwise, he'll just be chilling forever and a day. So we want to get rid of that Shive. We want to get rid of the 2 Musais. We will call Sayla, even though she's in a core booster. We want to get rid of these battleships. But again, we have to be mindful of the Rickdoms, because as you see right there, if you're not careful and you just spin right into that ship and the Rickdom hits you, you can have that weird glitch happen. But we destroy those ships, we get M'Quve out, and M'Quve may as well be one of the weakest antagonists in the game because you just carve through him so well, which is great for a speed run. But if you think about the rankings of antagonists, did I say protagonist before? I meant antagonist, by the way. He's just so weak. So this is the part where we can get the second skip. We can just skip this phase entirely, but it doesn't look like I'm going to get it. If we get M'Quve in good position, we can land the special attacks, and we did not get it. So the reason I want to try to get that skip is because there are so many mines around. The targeting system is already wonky. M'Quve moves around a lot, but fortunately when he does stop, he is open. You can skip that part entirely without having to worry about it. I didn't get it, so that is a potential time save I could have coming back into this run. You can skip that mine part. It's so annoying. This mine part, however, we're not so much worried about that. We're just going to fly straight to him, and you know, we're going to go straight at him with the beam saber. So more times than not, the main weapon is the good way to go, but as you see, sometimes I do prefer to go at people with the beam saber, and neither way is wrong. The beam saber and the beam rifle, more times than not, they do just about the same damage. There is one mission where we have to use a beam saber only. That'll come up later. But either way you go about it, you're not wrong. Whatever's faster for you. I feel like the beam rifle is more consistent for me. The main weapons, 9 times out of 10, are more consistent for me. But sometimes you just have to go hard and go in. This is one of those times you should go hard because you're going to do tons of damage. And again, you see the physics at play. And the only other bad part, as you see right there, there is a risk involved with using the melee, which is the enemy can get wise to what you're doing, bump into you to get you off, or use the melee. So now we wait, because after that slight little cutscene and break in the battle, M'Quve is open. It's a free punish. It gets past having to fight him a second time. We do enough damage to Char to get him out of the way, and the mission is over. We want to focus M'Quve first because Char on his own is going to leave. We get M'Quve out of the way, and then we're just going to immediately turn around to where Char is going to spawn and just do the damage we need to get him out of there. So now we enter the part of the game where, knowing that there are certain momentum glitches you can have where you can lose all of your health from running straight into a ship, and I have plenty of clips on my stream that show how this happens. I really need to save one and just showcase it, and just showcase all the dumb ways I've lost runs, that being among the most mind-blowing. You want to be careful right here because this whole mission, or at least the whole first part, you're floating kind of close around White Base. And you're waiting for enemies to spawn, which I don't know why they take 10 years in this mission. I say 10 years. It's just a way to say they take a really long time. Excuse me, I speak in hyperboles. They take a really long time to spawn, so I don't know if leaving them longer to let more spawn and just, I don't know, accelerating the process, I don't know if that helps anything, but this is one of a few missions where you actually get to land on a ship. And in this case, it's our own. So, in an instance where you're getting bored, just like these Zaku's and Rickdoms aren't showing up, maybe you just land on the White Base, assert your dominance, show some swagger, Show them this is your yard and you ain't taking no crap. You're going to kick them out if you see them, so on and so forth. So as you see right there, sometimes I do go after the Zaku's. I do believe later on the Zaku's are one-hit kill with the beam saber. So sometimes you might want to value doing that. Other times you just want to shoot, because even then you have to break through the Zaku's shield. Sometimes you can hit the shoulder and just break the shield instead of going for the one hit. But if you can get the one hit on the Zaku's, it's nice. I wish you could get the same for the Gundam, because the beam saber would make this mission butter. But I'm happy, and then you see right here, I'm just floating around, waiting for enemies to spawn, trying not to stay too close to the ship, trying not to get too comfortable, because when you get too comfortable, they spawn out of nowhere, and then they'll just get in points where... Oh, another thing I do have to mention, this does happen, and I'm glad it happened in this video. You can actually get stuck on the battleship, but so can the mobile suit that you're trying to go after. It makes trying to get it annoying. But if you don't clear that one first, I would say, and you try to go after the other one, it might just stay there. So the sooner you get it out of the way, the better. And you see right there, that thing about waiting or getting closer to units, rather than trying to Hail Mary because your shots aren't accurate, get closer to it to guarantee that the shots will hit. So now, unlike what we saw in the last mission of Thoroughbred mode, we do want to go after this Brawbro. Whether or not you clear these Rickdoms is up to you. Sometimes I clear them, other times I leave them. The Brawbro is pretty much the same exact fight as the Big Zom, except now we can get close to him. Now it's going to kind of stay in there. You would think it would fly around, but for some reason, it just stays exactly where it's at. But hey, I'll take it. Especially when those special attacks will get us through the mission so easily. And while he's sitting there elaborating about how strong Amuro is, even though at this point the Gundam is supposed to be moving slower, it doesn't matter, because the game just says, even with a slower Gundam, you're still Jesus. So what's going to happen here is, in canon, we are now going to get a new magnetic coating on a Gundam, which is basically like saying, if it wasn't bad enough that your enemy can kill you with a nuke, he can now kill you with a nuke, mass produce that same nuke, and kill you 300 times over and laugh about it. You know that meme on the internet you've seen with Char where it says, I came here to laugh at you? That is basically what that magnetic coating does for the Gundam from that point forward. You're sitting there laughing as everything just dies when you touch it. So a lot of this is in Route 2 mode to begin with. You think this is the big mission, but nothing really is going to happen here. This is the mission before the big mission. This is the icebreaker. It's not really a lot of what you're going to see in the next two missions, which I decided to put together on one split because they're all the same way. It may as well be like a part 1, part 2. But it's a good way to showcase, like, yeah, my Gundam's upgraded. We're moving fast now. It's great. Until you see this happen. If you pay attention, you will see these ships just blowing up. And if you see what exactly is doing it, as Gundam fans, you're going to appreciate knowing exactly what it is, but if you're not paying attention, which I certainly wasn't the first time I played this, I was just seeing ships blow up out of nowhere. I was like, dude, what's doing that? And I had no idea until I just looked and saw. I was like, oh. So again, we focus the battleship, we get them out of the way, and now we're just going to clear the units as they spawn, and we're waiting for the boss fight.
A detachment alone?
Again, Kai is very useful. The gun cannons in general are very useful. Supports, like, I can't sing the praises enough about the support units in this game. They are very, 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 very helpful. They make the runs go by so fast, especially when they all focus on the same target you want. Now, they're annoying if you're trying to get those A and S ranks and you don't want to call them, but sometimes you do think about calling them even though you're sitting there at a quarter health like, dude, if I don't call them, I'm going to die. I need you here to help me. So now we enter one of the major plot points of Mobile Suit Gundam. The Elmeth, piloted by Lava Soon. But as for the fight itself, if you let it go long enough, the Elmeth will spawn its bits, and so the bits are these weapons. I can't remember how they're controlled. They're these weapons that fire these beams, but we can just skip that entirely.
I'm afraid you
But this is the one time in the speed run that with the Elmeth, we're going to see actual plot. So this will be one of the times we're going to have a lot of lull. And I do like the fact, though, that as a Gundam fan, they did include these star-crossed scenes where you see these two characters going over their ideals, trying to come to an understanding of one another. So, again, she's out of bounds, but very much like the Big Zom fight, the Elmeth has such a big hitbox. And wait a minute.
A detachment alone? What a shame.
I love that. I love Amuro's reaction to that even better. I'm not sure if that's a bug or not, or if the developers missed that. But I like how Kai just says an attachment alone after all that, and then Amuro's reaction to it. I'm not sure if it was intended, but that... What? It's so good. So good. So we do a certain amount of damage to Lala early on to get her out of the way. And then we go on to the final boss of this mission, right there. A unit who prides himself on moving at 3 times normal speed, the Red Comet, Char Aznavour. So early on, it doesn't really do a good job of showcasing his strength or really his versatility as Amuro's rival. I mean, it makes sense because the second part in space after the Earth saga, you know, the Earth story, the missions on Earth, Char is not really shown at this point as being equal to or surpassing Amuro, and he's easy to take care of with the special attacks because the Gundam's Hyper Bazooka special attack is really good. You want to get... One thing I should mention about using those, we can punish the enemies in certain points when they barrel roll, and we can retarget them because they won't thrust for a while. We can actually get an open punish with them for a special attack as long as we're not too close. Because if we're too close, they could just burst into it. They could just fly into us and make us ricochet and interrupt the attack altogether. So you want to be careful with how close you are, but sometimes you do need to be close because otherwise you're just going to miss everything. So now this is a 2-part mission. It's mission 7, mission 8, but I call it a 2-parter because this is all the same landscape, same mission, same objective, which is why in the final mission, thank God, we don't get to see a briefing screen, but we trade a briefing screen for an unskippable cutscene, which is fine. So this is the point where the entire crew is sappy. It's the end of the war. They're all tired. They're all just physically, mentally exhausted. But as far as this thing goes, this is going to be kind of like Solomon, where we have several objectives to cover, several allies to save, and there is a certain part where if we don't protect the white base, we will have a game over. So we have to be cognizant of that. We get through the first part easy, take care of the Gelgoogs, take care of the Musai, and now we're moving over into the area where we have to take care of the white base. Again, we're using route tube or multi-target and route tube mode to pick up free points where we can. Definitely useful if we're definitely trying to get the A ranks or the S ranks, but again, we don't care about our rank anymore in this part of the run. The only time we did was early on, and we took care of it. So again, knowing that we have to protect the white base, there are 2 Musais here. If left unchecked, they will destroy the white base. Their missiles and their cannons do a lot of damage. So what I want to do is before I take care of these Rikdoms, Gelgoogs, Zakus flying around, those battleships have to get out of the way, and then I can turn my attention to the mobile suits. And the best thing about this part right here is that there's 2 supports. So carving through these mobile suits are going to be like butter. Absolutely no trouble to them at all. You know, it's a good way to end the first part of the mission. Well, it's not really the end of it, but it's a good last hurrah with your buddies. And it's a good way to send you off into the final parts of the run. Not really a whole lot going to happen here, even with the last part, but we cleared through all the enemies there, and then we're going to the big Dolos carrier, where, believe it or not, we have yet another fight with a big bro. Now, fortunately, this one will be weaker than the first one we saw, but it's still susceptible to the same things. However, we are better equipped at dealing with it, and we can get better RNG with it. It is more susceptible to slowing down. It won't exactly be the same nuisance, although it can be, but it's not that big of a pain in the butt. And there's 3 of these that pop up. 2 of these are easy to blow up if you can get them. The second one is possible to get, but sometimes it's just you can't. Or if you do like I do, you just fire all your shots trying to get the one early, and then you can't get the second one because you're a smart guy who decides, I'm going to just overheat my main weapon. I don't need to use it at all. Nah, I'm good, fam. So to get this big bro to come out, we have to take care of a few of the Gelgoogs that pop up. They do have shields, but fortunately they all go down. We have to take care of some of the Zakus and Rickdoms that do show up. But once the big bro shows up, we're going to immediately turn our attention to it. Let me speak the English language too. Sorry if I'm getting tongue twisted anywhere. And as you see right away, he just introduced himself to us like, hey friend, how have you been? It's been a while, hasn't it? See, I can get out of its way. I fire a few special attacks. I'm surprised most of them actually hit. I think all of them hit too. I'm not sure. But anyway, see as slow as it comes, it flies over us, so it gives us a chance to actually hit it. We're down to 1 hit with it, so boom, done. And we're out of this mission. So now we go into part 2, where we're just going to skip a few cutscenes, get through the scores, not save, and keep moving. I should mention, ideally, you don't want to play this run with a memory card, or if you do have a memory card, you kind of want to just put it in slot 2, because you'd rather not save in any of this, because if you do, of course you're losing time. So it's better if you don't save. It's way better if you don't save. Now, that being said, you should save when you have A or S rank runs because, well, of course you've beaten the game and you have to have it in slot 1. But for an any % run, just beating the game one time, having beaten it fresh, don't use it. Do not use a memory card. I highly recommend do not use a memory card because sometimes you can screw up. You can hit the pause menu too many times. You can hit no twice instead of hitting no yes. So it's just a little thing where it gives you a little leeway if you mess up a button input a little bit. Not the end of the world. So we get through that cutscene, and now we're playing through the major tragic point of Gundam, where finally we're looking at the final battle. Finally, this is the end of the war. Everybody is exhausted. Everybody is at wit's end. Somebody is going to win this battle here, and it looks like it's going to be the Federation. Spoiler alert. But anyway, we're in route tube mode for a good part of this. For most of this, actually, we're in route tube mode. So we just get to sit back, relax, destroy a few mobile suits, blow up a few ships. I missed the Shive, shame on me. Reporting myself for not getting all the battleships. And this is the one part of the run, of the game actually, where we actually have a little bit of a sortie with an ace pilot unit. In this case, it's Char. Even though it's only about 10 seconds, and he just kind of disappears. Where'd he go? We didn't beat him. He just kind of, boop, disappears. I don't know if he just deloads or if they just say, bloop. We don't even see him flying off. We just see ship disappear and he's gone. The one thing I should say about this game that is annoying, that's not the capture card lagging at all, that is the actual game. Again, the developers really clocked out what exactly the PS2 could do here, and sometimes there's just so much going on. it causes lag. It's not emulation, I swear. This is the actual game on the big boy PS2 doing this. So we're going to clear out the battleships here. We don't really care too much about what's going on with the Rickdoms and the Shiveys and the Shiveys. Gelgoogs, Zaku's, the Shiveys battleship. What am I saying? We do care about the Shiveys. It's the Musais that we mostly care about. We took out the one Shivey of relevant note. Now sometimes, again, we do have to clear... If those Rickdoms and Gelgoogs are being annoying too, you can turn around and take them out if they are causing that much of a distraction and getting that much in your way. But 9 times out of 10, if you're playing well, they shouldn't be doing that at all. So, you could ask, why am I not using special attacks against the Musais and the battleships at all? Wouldn't it make it go a little bit faster? And you're right, it would, but again, you're not wrong to do either way. The beam rifles, they do a lot of damage. The special attacks would actually save a lot of time, but at that point I was just like, I might as well save them, because in my mind, I'm going to need 3 coming out of this phase anyway. Why not save them? I'm not going to use them that much, and even if I do, I'll just get 1 back. Better to save it than build it back up, but even then, I could just use this phase to build up those special attacks. So that's something to keep in mind, even when I'm commentating this right now and looking at it in retrospect for this speed run. Just my mindset was, I don't care at that point, but I needed to really think about speed at that point, and speed at that point would be using the special attacks and getting through those ships a lot faster. So, stuff to think about. It's not a perfect run. Nothing will ever be a perfect run unless, you know, TAS, but I have not seen anybody use TAS for a Gundam run in all the Gundam games I've seen, be it from Battle Assault, Journey to Jaburo. There's even people who speedrun Federation versus Zeon, and then there's a couple who are speedrunning weird games that I haven't even heard about from Japan, because I don't have the NTSC Japan PS2. I have NTSC US. But anyway, right here, we're just trying to get through these parts as fast as we can, and now we just get the literal touch of death where almost everything dies in 1 hit, and it's great. And really and truthfully, if you notice the explosions going on most of this game, even though they're a little more arcadey compared to, say, the glory of Journey to Jaburo, they're just boom, clean. If you see a lot of them happen, you just like, yes, I feel so strong. So this is why I want 3 special attacks. We're against Char now. Char isn't a powerful unit this time. However, he cannot use melee to attack us. So, when we're playing as Amuro, we do want to come in close. And this is where the special attacks really shine, because after he dodges a while, we use the specials, we get through this mission a lot. If we meander around too much and let Char use his specials, those specials can really do a lot of damage to us. That's something that should be mentioned about the ace pilots. They can do the special attacks at you as well. They're very dangerous in some cases. One of them is especially terrifying, and we will go over that more toward the end of the run. And by terrifying, I'll just put it to you like this. You could die in 1 hit. So I go ahead and split when the Zeong fight ends, because this little part right here is just a glorified cutscene. And I do like the fact that, again, it's just one of those little things that enhance the Gundam experience. But as far as the speed run, it's just, could I really skip this? You know, could I just get out of this and just consider this complete? And I'm pretty sure if you do quit out of this, it does not give you credit for beating the mission. You don't get a score scene, you don't get anything. You would have to go back and finish this, which is annoying. I wish there was a way to skip it. Maybe somebody will find a way to skip it. And if they do, God, I'm gonna love you. Because if you could skip it twice the same way, because we're gonna see this exact same cutscene again, but from the other perspective, if someone could find a way to skip this, I would love it. But even then, I don't mind as a Gundam fan having to play this out, especially when It's one of those burn your rope type updates like you see in Donkey Kong 3. It's just a way for you to de-stress a little, take a breath, make observation of the run, know where you're at, reflect on how you're at, and then just prepare for the onslaught that's fixing to happen, because these next 8 sections you're going to go through in Ace Pilot mode are tough. They're really tough. Some of them can be anyway, and by tough I mean you don't get the pleasure of playing as Amuro. Sometimes you run directly into Amuro, and it can be so frustrating, especially when you get to the midway point. When you get to the midway point, you may just want to pull your hair out because of what can happen. So, there's 8 Ace Pilots, all in this mode, and the reason we did White Base mode and Thoroughbred mode first is because they unlock 2 of the pilots we need for Ace Pilot mode. We get 1 to start. We get 2 more. We beat White Base mode, and then as soon as we start Char, we start unlocking everybody else, and then we're going to go straight in a line all the way to the finish. So we start with Char, because naturally, he unlocks the rest of everybody we need. Well, he unlocks the next person, which unlocks the next person, which unlocks the next person. Then we go to who we had from beating Thoroughbred mode. Then we go to who we start with, and then he will unlock the final 2. So it's just better to go boom, boom, bam, 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 all in a row, especially when the first 4 guys will all have this same mission that we're going to see right here, but there's going to be a few subtle differences, but mostly they're all going to play the same way. We have Zaku's right here that we're using. We have the bazookas. So this is one time the sub-weapons do have a little bit of a use. There are grenades when we run out of ammo of our main weapon. Normally, I go to the special attack if I have the option available, but if not, I will throw the grenades just to keep things moving while my bazooka reloads. And now we're going to see a good trick to use in Ace Pilot mode. Knowing that we have these battleships and we're going to play as a lot of Xeon guys, we're going to just aim for these ships out of bounds. So more times than not, there are a few exceptions. When the ships are coming directly to the battlefield and moving, even though you can't target them, you can manually target them, you can deal the damage and destroy them before they come in range to target, which is very, very useful of a save and will help in making all these missions and any future missions exactly like that one, where you have to use that same save. Very useful. Speaking of time saves involving battleships, Mission 2 for Char. If you play this casually and try to go after Amuro and think, yeah, I'm a big man, I got all this, well, Amuro will blow you up in about 4 shots, even though you're Char. Because this is the mission where you just start looking at Amuro like, what in the world is this boy on? So, rather than play with fire, rather than die at the hands of the infamous white mobile suit, we're just going to go completely past him, because one of the parameters for this mission is doing enough damage to the white base as well. And the white base is a big, huge target, sitting duck, so what do you think is easier? Just attacking the white base directly. And we're out of there in less than 30 seconds in the fastest mission in the game. Literally. The freest time save outside of the first phase of the Big Zom fight. So really and truthfully, Char's mode is his missions are a lot shorter, because 3 of them all follow the same kind of formula, which is inflict enough damage on the Gundam, or in that case the white base. But now these next 2 are going to be, we're going to just have a sortie with the Gundam and we're going to move on.
The pilot is getting better.
And as you'll see, this mode really does a good job. These missions do a really good job at capturing Char's hatred of the Gundam, hatred of the pilot, his determination to beat the pilot in combat, and especially it captures the parts of how he becomes personally driven to do it after the big battle where Amuro takes the life of someone he cared about closely and dearly. So we will use the beam saber more frequently with Char than the beam rifle. The beam saber guarantees I will take out more chunks of Amuro's health, considering his shield has a massive hitbox. And yes, even though the special attack can be pretty useful on Char, the shield will block most of it. And in the next mission coming up, we don't want to use the special attack. The reason we don't want to use the special attack, and you see right there the joys of not having, or not using, in this case, a memory card, just having it sitting out, you know, a little thing, like I mentioned, minor annoyance, minor nuisance. You're not really going to lose a whole lot. Just slap on the wrist. But you'll just sit there hitting no, 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 no before you finally hit no, yes in the right order. So anyway, this next mission right here has a caveat. So Char's sister is in this fight. She is a Federation pilot. She shows up. We don't want to shoot her at all. If she dies, we get a game over. This one time, you get a game over for shooting the enemy. We don't want that to happen. And that is the reason I don't want to risk using the special attack. Because if I fire the special attack and we hit her, knowing we have a wonky targeting system, it's a one-hit kill. It is too risky, especially when the risk in this case greatly outweighs the reward. It's high risk, low reward. We don't want to do it. The beam saber is just more consistent. If Amuro does end up going out of bounds, we'll just bite the bullet, shoot him with the beam rifle, and go on from there. But we got through it pretty quickly, so we're alright. And now we don't ever have to worry about Sayla again, but now we get to deal with the Zeong. And while I personally had a soft spot for the Zeong because I like the idea of having a unit fire 70 million, I say 70 million, it's more like 9, 10, something like that. Multiple beams from multiple directions, so you can have varied angles, you can fire your hands from anywhere. It's just, you only have 2 weapons. If you lose those 2 weapons, you're screwed. I mean, not having legs is one thing, but only having hands for weapons and then not having the ability to use melee, it's a rough life, man. It's rough times at Ridgemont High. But the good thing about Char Special, we're going to try to save it for the ships as much as we can, because we're going to have battleships flying around. We're going to try to save it for the ships as much as we can, and the ship is way out of bounds. So this is one time where I will actually defer to going after the mobs rather than going after the ship. Especially when Amuro will show up as you hear the music. The audio cue lets you know he's coming. We are going to want to stay away from him. We're going to try to use our range. Sometimes with the special attacks, we do want to come in close. But for the safety of the early game, you can kind of try to stay back from him rather than run the risk of getting close to him, because we are going to face him again. And as you see, if you do land the special, you are in good shape. And the other good thing about Char's special attack, and really the main weapon in general, since you're firing, if you just fire it standalone, you're firing 5 beams from your hand at the shield. You have such a big hitbox with your attack. If you hit the Gundam and break his shield, he becomes open for anything. So now we're going to let him get away, and now we're going to just blow up all the ships coming through, and then it's going to get to a point where we're just clearing mobs left and right until we finally get the cue that we're starting the next part. And again, I made a little bit of a mention to us. This game does a good job. If you're speedrunning this casually, or you're just running it casually, or you're just playing it casually, the game does a very good job at using cues to let you know when you are moving to the next part of the mission, or when a mission is over. Sometimes it'll go straight to a cutscene. Sometimes you'll just get a lull where nothing will happen and you can't do anything, you can't even attack, you don't lose any health if you are getting attacked. Certain little things like that. The game does a great job at establishing that. So sometime at this point, you do want to think you're going to have multiple ships flying through. Maybe it's better if you save one stock of special, because then that way you can build up another one, and if the ships take forever and a day to come through, you can turn around and take care of the mobs, especially when later on you're going to have to do exactly that, because the ships will run out of the way, and then you see the joys of the Zeon special attack, where sometimes you think you're going to get the ship in one shot, just like I'm going to get it to a certain point, it'll die. Nah, it won't do what you need it to do when you need it to do it. But the good things, though, again, is even when those ships are way out of bounds, or even when they run out, the enemies will spawn right by you. The downside of these big missions, again, that, like I mentioned, go through Solomon and About Q, is sometimes you want to target a meaningful unit, and they'll end up having you target a fighter pilot, or having you target a missile fired from a ship, or having you target something entirely different other than what you want to target. Again, that is the literal only complaint I have about this game from the aside from maybe a little bit of repetition, but I think even with the little bit of repetition there's enough variance in the missions that even though a lot of it plays the same, you know, for the purpose of running it and for the purpose of playing it, I don't really mind it. So at this point, we know the ships aren't there because there aren't any red arrows. So red arrows do point to targets of importance. When you don't have those, that probably means you're just running through mobs before the mission ends. Whereas targets of importance will show themselves with a red arrow. Sometimes it'll be a battleship, sometimes it'll be an ace pilot, so on and so forth. And we do just have a random Gelgoog helping us. We didn't ask him to come here, he's just already here. I love it. So these gem units and ball units are just going to keep spawning en masse. Good news is we can take care of these guys with ease. I try to target the ball units first because if I hit one clean shot, it doesn't have a shield. One clean shot will destroy it, whereas with the gem unit, if I get a clean shot, it dies. If I don't, the shield blows off and then the next hit kills it. So it's fine. We're just sitting here chilling. We're waiting. And then we get to the bad side of... We get to be on the other side of that Zeon Gundam fight. So you would think you don't want the Gundam close to you. And you're right. You don't. But if you're specifically trying to fire a special, you may consider getting as close to Amuro as you can, so you guarantee the hands will get a big target. And if it hits like you want, you can eliminate a good chunk of his health, which makes this fight a whole lot easier. But what you'll want to do is, after you abandon that for the special, you'll want to get the heck out of the way. But if he barrel rolls, or he just moves out of the way, or you don't really get a clean special off, like see right there, he dodges, so I go for it, but then he starts moving. And then I have other gym units coming in the way. This is one situation you do want to be mindful of Amuro. He can fire the specials. He can come in at you with the beam saber. He can take away good chunks of your health. You don't have a shield, so you have to kind of be mindful of where he's at and what he's doing. But as you see right there, man, that crossover from those beams was so great. And it didn't hit his shield, it hit him right in the legs. And it's still hitting him. And now that the shield's away, he's open. It's great. And I mess up the special. Not the end of the world. He dodged. But he's almost down anyway. So it's okay. I'm not even going to bother firing the special, knowing he has no shield. Just get a few shots in him. Let's go from there. And then we're going to play through the same sword fight again, which I wish it wasn't in there twice. And I wish we could skip it. You know, because I feel like that's fluff. I should be able to skip that, get my score, move on. But I get, for the purpose of the game, for the purpose of story development, you kind of have to see it. But I mean, it is what it is. I would just prefer, in the event of the speedrun, like, it's a cool little thing to have as a bonus, but do I really have to play through this again? I don't think so. Fortunately, though, this is the last time we see it, so that's kind of the whole point of, if I can't skip it, I may as well just play it first, get it out of the way, and be done with it. And that's why I split right there. Like, if you wanted to end the run right there, like, maybe if you thought about it in future parts, you could just try to end the run with it, but at the same time, you need to beat Char first to unlock the rest. And you would think in a perfect world, you could just unlock everybody else normally and then beat Char last, but you have to beat Char to unlock the rest of the ace pilots, or start to. So you're in this cross where catch-22, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Oh well. But fortunately, you know, this is the part of the run that once we get through it, it's over with. And I'll be honest with you, the next 3 guys that come up, the game kind of enters a lull where, yeah, there's some intrigue too, but they're either pretty brief or there's just not a lot going on to it, that it's all just kind of the same, you know, hey, we're the Principality of Zeon. Before the Federation had the mobile suits, we were flying around and whooping those asses, son. We were on top of this thing. We were kings. And then it ends. But I will say, by the time it hits halfway through Shin Matsunaga, if you were falling asleep before, oh my god, you're going to want to pull your hair out by the time you get midway through. But even then, there is still some intrigue going on, so let's go through it. And by the way, that's just a personal vent, by the way. That's not meant to kind of cast the game in a negative light, although there is some critiques. I'm sure everybody has their own critiques about games they run, too. But for the most part, no real complaints. They're just minor, but there are some things that for the sake of the run, I wish we could get through them. Now, in these spots, we will use the out-of-bounds, fire at the ship and do enough damage save. We'll do that again here prevalently, especially here. We're going to only shoot 4 of these up, but the second phase you definitely want to be careful for. But I feel like the second phase in the past few days has gotten easier for me, but casually, I was just like, I could never figure out how to do it. So again, you're going to see me just firing up the specials when I run out of bazooka ammo. And if I don't have a special, like right here, I'll just throw the grenades, just get it going, and keep going from there. And now I see the big ship that we're going after, the one that they're making a big deal about. Take a few seconds to line your shot up. You want to be sure that you're being accurate. If you're not sure you're being accurate, just, hey, take time. You don't have to rush it. Just line it up. Get your shot like you want it, then start firing. And sometimes they'll even come and target when you start doing that, so you won't have to worry too long. Now, this is the second phase we want to be careful about. We cannot automatically target this guy right here. We can't target this life pod, so it makes the cursor a lot important. But as you saw right there, if you can get your cursor over it and you just start firing, it has a big enough hitbox already. I tried to casually land on that thing because you can. It's possible. It's a swag strat, but I just learned the thing has such a massive hitbox anyway. Just shoot it. Just shoot it. Even though you would think something like that should only take 1 shot, it takes 6, but either way, it's just enough to knock out the propulsion. Once you see the engines go out, you move on to the next mission. It's something that in hindsight was more annoying at first until I realized exactly how simple taking care of it is. And just like that, this mission is simple to take care of. Even though we're in the only time we're going to see these units, by the way, even though we are in the old boy Zaku suits, we're just going to go straight after these battleships. We're supposed to take care of these rookies. They're supposed to be in a training simulation, but now it turns out they've been elected to go in real combat. Instead of going through the real combat, we're just going to take out the battleships. We're going to take them out. We're going to move on. There's 3. They're very easy to go through. Even though we're not doing a lot of damage, we're still going to carve through them because they can't really put up a fight at this point. Again, same idea. Throw the grenades when you have to. Throw the specials when you have to. Go through your bazooka ammo. As soon as I shoot that Magellan down, we are done. So, entering Mission 3 of the Black Tri-Stars, you're thinking like, man, if the rest of the missions are this easy, huh, We're going to have a cakewalk. Oh, just you wait, friends. Just you wait. Just you wait, because even though it kind of starts easy, like, yeah, the rest of this run is going to be easy. We're going to be done in about, I don't know, hour 45, 2 hours. It gets to a point where you just start going, man, because you realize what's coming next. So for mission 3, this is the one time that I should mention, we're going to see a ship that's out of bounds, but kind of like the same deal with the Thoroughbred, but instead of the Musai having to come into a certain point before we can do damage to it, we can't do anything to the ship we're gonna see until it actually starts getting involved. I do want to say though, these high mobility Zakus, just in general, the black TriStar units, the black TriStars in general are fun. Country bumpkins with a bunch of swagger, and I really wish that they wouldn't have been written off as fast as they were, because concepts like those guys, I mean, those are gimmicks that write themselves. The coordinated team attacks, the chemistry between them, the way they just handle themselves, it's great. I wish there was more of that going around in Mobile Suit Gundam. Unfortunately, there isn't. So we're going to clear out these fighter units as much as we can. We're just flexing on these guys like, yeah, this is going to be easy. We're the kings, man. Shoot, nobody can touch us. And we will have all 3 black TriStars available to use. Well, I say that. The other 2 will be with us. That is one thing I do like to mention, or should mention, by the way. And now, hey, look! Mobile suits! What the heck? So that Magellan, we were looking at it the whole time. If you were paying attention, it's been there the whole time. We could have been shooting at it, but if you try to shoot at it, you won't do any damage to it. You won't blow it up. I wish you could, because it would make things a lot easier, but you can't do anything to it until it starts getting involved. I've tried several times. But now from this point forward, we're just going to clear through the missions and just let it go, because our boys are just going to blow everything up. I should mention, by the way, I do like how they have one mode dedicated to 3 guys, and yet we're playing as one guy the whole time. Not as all 3, we're playing as one guy. Now granted, we're playing as the leader of this whole bowl of fruits and nuts, so we're supposed to be playing as the strongest of the guys. But, I mean, I'm just saying, one guy does not make a whole team. Well, not unless you ask LeBron James a few years ago, but even then the Golden State Warriors rightly said, "Excuse me," to him. So now we're through the black TriStars. We're done there. We won't see them again. They do not have another operation in space. They dominate only to just ploop, disappear after Earth, because they have the misfortune of running into Amuro. Speaking of having the misfortune of running into Amuro, we have not seen the last of him. Fortunately, we won't see him with Johnny Raiden. However, speaking of Johnny Raiden and speaking of Amuro, the one caveat about Johnny Raiden. So his name is the Crimson Lightning. The unfortunate side effect is that his mobile suit is red. Now you'd think Crimson Lightning, man, that's a cool name. But when you hear the fact that he has or gets a red mobile suit, everybody ever starts going, wait a minute, that's Char, the Red Comet! And if you don't believe me, just wait till Mission 3. I'll even stop so you can hear this. It's just, I shouldn't have even said it, because now I've just ruined it, but I mean, it's so great. I love it. I love it. Unfortunately, though, he does not compare to Char anyway, because as all Char purists know, he does not move at 3 times normal speed. So, Raiden, again, the same Battle of Loom start, same mission where we're sinking ships. The only difference with him now is that instead of destroying 4 or 5, we have to get 6. So this is where attacking out-of-bounds units will be really useful, and sometimes even when they are starting out of bounds, they'll just come in bounds and be like, nah fam, I got you, you ain't got to go through all that hard work. See, I thought I was going to have to do it with the Salamis, and it said nah. But with the Magellan, I'm going to go ahead and start doing it. I start firing the special. I'm starting to throw the grenades. I do that just to get the reload. If the Zaku will get out of my way and not get hit, we'll be fine. And then that public unit decides he wants to fly in my way. Fortunately, I don't go ricocheting off it like a dang old pinball. Because, fortunately, this game does have enough physics where something that's light that runs into something that's heavy, if it's the heavy thing doing it, it doesn't really get affected. So, you see right there, the out of bounds, I was able to knock it out before it ever got in the battlefield, and now the mission is over. Just one of the great things about a mission like this that makes it go through and makes it so that even though you see it several times, it's very painless to go through. So it's great. And really a lot of Raiden is going to be kind of the same thing where we're just going to clear a lot of battleships and we're going to get out of the way. Because that's really, I think that's the main thing that, I don't know if it's the main thing that he's known for, but I know they make a good point of establishing he's really good at taking out battleships and taking out entire crews. And, you know, they have it, I think they have it established in one of the cutscenes that he sunk X amount of enemy aircraft in one of his last battles. But as you see right now, you look at this, a red Zaku. It's not even the same color, but I do like the way it looks. It moves faster. I should mention this about Johnny as well. Most of his units are high mobility. They feel fast, even though they're not known, I guess, for being fast until you realize they're high mobility suits. But you'll just see the speed difference when we get to his final suit, which is great. And again, we're going to try to use the out of bounds, and as you see, it already comes in space anyway, so all I got to do is do what I need to do there. And then the other one there just shows up. Hey, I'm already here. You ain't got to do all that. The bazooka, I should mention too. He's using a giant bazooka. I do like the giant bazooka compared to the stock Zaku bazookas they give you. Just another way to make him stand out. He's got more firepower behind it, and it reloads faster. You definitely won't, as far as speedrunning goes, it's perfect. So we're just going to knock out these battleships, and we're going to keep moving. At this point of the run, a lot of these missions are going to play out the same way. A lot of them are straightforward. Just knock out a few battleships, and we move on. But there will be some variances coming up where you kind of have to start worrying about the enemy strength. You have to start worrying about what the enemies can do. You have to start worrying about certain time frames, you know, especially toward the end. But for right now, as long as you play relatively well through this, you could sleepwalk through the first part of Ace Pilot mode. It's when we get to Shin Matsunaga that we kind of start tensing up. So now we get the high mobility Zaku. And that bazooka is huge. And this is the start of Mission 3, so just to kind of drive a point home.
Is it the Red Comet?
It's time to settle. What? I'm the Crimson Lightning, Johnny Raiden. Remember that.
I do like the fact that for all intents and purposes, even though this guy is meant to be a serious character, and he's actually, I really like the character of Johnny Raiden. He is a prideful soldier. He enjoys fighting, and he's kind of a guy who, I don't know if take no bullshit is the way to do it. He seems like a very humble dude, and it just feels like to me he was cast on the wrong side. He was cast with the bad guys, where if he was put on the side of the Earth Federation, he would instantly be one of the best characters in the game just how enjoyable he is. But I do like the fact that even though they have that character, they do have something in for comedic effect, just to kind of like, you know, just to show that even though all this serious stuff is going on, it's something that they can kind of crack a joke about, just be like, So, the special attacks, I should mention. You could ask, why am I not doing the special attacks so often? If I've gone on about how the special attacks can get through mobs of enemies real quick, the simple answer is because even though I would think Amuro would be very good at it as well, and there's a later part in the run where they're really good at clearing out certain units, but most of the special attacks are very good at taking out a single target or just handling something a certain way. I think the closest we're going to see to the same effect we have with the Gatling gun special attack may be the machine gun, but even then I still feel like the machine gun special attacks, they don't do the same amount of damage that the Gatling gun special attacks do that really justify being able to spread it out in waves. And sometimes, like I just mentioned, you know, it all comes down to there's times where, yes, the special attacks are the strongest attacks in the game, but it all comes to unit management and knowing what the special attacks do with the unit management. So, that being said, I do personally love this unit right here. There was a guy, what's his name, Lokenhar, if I'm not mistaken, that did a Let's Play of this, and I remember watching his part of Johnny Ryden, how he mentioned he loved this mobile suit. I am in full agreement with him. Even though you don't have a shield, even though you only have two weapons, which is the beam rifle and the beam saber, even though you only have those, I mean, I don't know if it's a beam saber, by the way. I might be getting that wrong, but I feel like it is. But, the thing just flies so fast, and it doesn't use a lot of thruster gauge. It's able to cover a lot of ground without using a lot of thrust, and it's great. I love it. So that's really useful, and I think the intent of this mission is really to drive home the point that you just cover so much ground that even though something is getting away from you, the fact that you're able to fire that weapon and catch up with it and then use your speed to build the momentum to do it, and if something's moving so slow that you can just fly to it and catch up with it, see how that's ridiculous. See how much distance I just closed in that? That thing was so far away, and I was able to close the distance. Now, there's another minor thing we should go over. That's where you kind of forget. You've been in a lull for a little bit. I was. I thought there was a cutscene coming up, and I forgot. There is no cutscene, so sometimes you can lose a little bit of time on those pause screens, but when nothing's going on and they're just talking, at first it was, you know, nothing, nobody hurt, nothing lost, but in that one, you kind of lose a few seconds from doing that, but you should see right there, now that I was saying that, I let him say, are you trying to intimidate the Black Stars, or Black Tri-Stars, excuse me. There are some good things I like about Ace Pilot Mode. The callbacks to certain modes or certain pilots is one of them. You're facing 3 Rickdoms, and I like the way they start with the jet stream attack. So the special attack is useful in this fight. The Rickdoms don't have shields. These guys don't really use the barrel roll dodges a lot. It's a lot of free damage. Doesn't guarantee one hit, but you can go in, fire the beam rifle, hit him with the beam saber. I'm pretty sure I'm still getting that wrong, by the way. I forget what that thing is called. I'm just so used to calling it a beam saber on all sides. But, you go after it. I don't know why I wasn't able to... Oh, I know why, because of the barrel rolls. That's the only thing, again, that sometimes the barrel rolls just don't let you target them, but it's all good. But you use the special attacks. They do a good chunk of damage. They make going through the fight really easy, and then you're out of there. And if you're lucky, you get to the move sign enough time and see the Rickdoms flying. If they haven't automatically deloaded or cleared out, you'll see them flying straight into the move sign. It just makes an entertaining glitch to see. So now, with Johnny Ryden, once again, we start learning about how, you know, how he shot down X amount of enemy aircraft, or we will after this mission. And really and truthfully, to reflect that, this mission is just as simple as go shoot any enemy ship that comes around. Now this is where we definitely want to use the special attacks to our advantage. When we get them stockpiled, we definitely want to use them. We want to try to keep as many as we can, but fortunately, if we don't have the special attacks or we don't feel confident in lining up the shot, you can just open fire, or you can just wait for it to come in. you can actually clear some mobs and wait, but me personally, I would just much rather do that right there with the special attack and get them through. And when I don't have the special attack, you know, I can just wait. Sometimes I may clear mobs, other times I'm just gonna sit, fire a few shots because it takes about 4 or 5 shots to take out the battleships, and then I'll just wait. I'll just wait for the next one to come in and go from there. Now, of course, with the Magellan, I've just gotten used to the point where the Salamis, you can fire them off most of those in one shot, but the Magellan, you kind of have to do some damage before you can take it out. So it works for me. And even then, I'm not going to use the special attack right here, knowing that we just had a battleship come through. I'd rather just save it for the next ones coming through, because maybe by that time I'll have 2 specials, and when I get this one, by the time the next one comes through, I'll just lock onto it, guarantee I hit it. And really and truthfully, this is one time where you could think, well, wouldn't you use the out-of-bounds stuff that you were using in the Battle of Loon missions? You're right. I could use those, but knowing I have something that guarantees a kill as soon as it comes through, and really and truthfully, they're already moving fast enough that I kind of don't have to line this up and wait. I can just go get them myself more times than not. Like, there's one time right there I could probably do it, but even then, they're already so close to the edge of the battlefield that by the time I see them, they're going to start firing missiles. It's just better to go ahead, let them come in, do what I have to do. That will make the missions go by really fast. So after we get through Johnny Raiden, we now enter probably, I don't know if I think it's the hardest, but it's definitely been the most frustrating for me. It can be the hardest. It can be the most frustrating. It's one of those where if you don't pay attention to your health, if you don't pay attention to the mobs around you, and you just try to zone in for the ships or you zone in for something else, you can get punished. This game, or this part of the run, is a wake-up call to the fact that you still have other things to take care of. You can't just keep trying to go fast, because the game quickly reminds you, hey, you're not Amuro anymore. You actually have to know what you're doing. So, the difference between Shin Matsunaga and this point, I do respect the differences from his Battle of Loon, where now instead of a bazooka, we're going to have a machine gun. The only difference with the machine gun is that instead of firing off all the rounds and then doing the special, we're going to fire off as many rounds as we can, and then if we happen to get a special, we'll use it in between, because it's just a way to spread some damage out, get some more damage in, and if we do enough damage, the special will finish the battleships or the units off for us, and mostly we're going to use those for the sake of battleships. And also, he has one of the coolest units in the game, bar none. I do love the final units for him. I love his final unit just as much as I love Johnny Raiden's. And the good thing about, if you did use the out-of-bounds trick with Shin Matsunaga, and you weren't confident with the bazooka before, the machine gun gives you a margin of error just to practice it, because you have such a wide rate of fire, and I don't know if a wide hitbox is the right way to say it, but because you have more rounds, you may miss a few, but you can take a few seconds to correct your shot and correct for distance, and you'll be okay. Whereas with the bazookas, you get 10 shots. And if you miss, you have to wait until you reload again. But it's fine. We don't really get a lot of out of bounds right here, but if we did, it'd be great. Still fine though. So we take out the Magellan, we take out 4 ships, we move on, we're done. And that was, again, the other big difference, is that if we let the battleships go through, we have to take care of the Musai. But by the time we take care of the battleships, it's just like, oh, hey, thanks for joining us. We don't need you. We're good. I got this. I'm a beast. Stay over there. Just, you made your cameo. Let's have fun. So, we go into mission 2, and the other big thing about Shin Matsunaga is that he's real tight with a high-ranking commander in the military, and this is I do like the little nuances the game has that develop these guys' characters. If you watch their cutscenes, you know, even though he's also a proud soldier like Johnny Raiden, he takes pride in a different sense, whereas Raiden kind of takes pride in being a good pilot and surviving and being trusted to be a leader. Shin Matsunaga has a sort of pride from serving under someone he sees as honorable. He sees someone with class. He sees someone as a good soldier, and he sees someone like a brother. That to me, just, I love it. You know, and say what you will about the Zeons, and, you know, having respect for people with morals these days, especially knowing what's going on in our world, but, you know, I still just like the little nuances that go on that flesh out these characters and develop them. Even in a little game like this, it's just, you don't really get to see it in the speedrun, and that's a shame, except for that one time in white base mode where, of course, you just have those cutscenes that happen. And I guess with the end of Char's run, you could say that too. But it's just a shame that you don't get to see it, but playing the game casually, seeing all the cutscenes for yourself, I mean, it's just a wonderful feeling. It's great to see. So we're supposed to escort Dozel through this mission while we're sitting here destroying these battleships and these fighter units. But escorting someone as him, and I forgot to mention this. I forgot to mention this in all my rumbling and rambling. The man we're fighting beside has a Zaku, okay? But it has gold freaking trim. What Zaku do you know that has gold freaking trim? I didn't really get a good chance to look. You don't really get a good chance to see it or look at it in the speedrun, but if you get a chance to look at it as a unit viewer on your own, my God, man, it is a thing of beauty. It's so classy. You just look at it and go like, man, if I'm gonna play this game or play as this unit, I have to hold my pinky up, or if I were to pilot this in real life, I would have to hold the pinky up. So now we just go and take care of these battleships, and you do want to take care of, again, you especially want to take care of these battleships. They're going after your friend. If you let them sit too long, your friend will die. But he's just fine fighting on his own. You're not really escorting him, he's escorting you. He's very useful. Even though he's a high-end escort, he's one of the best escorts you could have, because he's going to fight back, he's going to do a lot of damage, he's very useful. That's what I appreciate about having him around. So, we've gotten through the first two where you kind of get your feet wet and it's like, okay, this is still pretty easy. This is the part of the game now where if you're not paying attention, you will get slapped. You will. So, the next mission we're going for, we're looking for the Magellan-class ship. And if we take that out, we're good. And I do believe we can get that with the out of bounds as well, but I've been forgetting if I went straight for it, or if I just cleared all the ships, or if you have to clear the ships before the thing shows up. Again, it's been a few days since I speedrun it, and my memory for the most part was a little hazy until I got back to playing. It's like, oh yeah, that's how I used to do it. But the way I'm going to do it here is I'm going to go after these ships, and as long as I'm not having too many mobs mess me up, I will just take the ships out and we'll move on. So as you see, there's 3 Salamises back to back to back. You have a strong unit. You're able to get there in plenty of time. I'm just going to go over, take these ships out as fast as I can. The specials are really good at carving these ships up. And then when I don't have a special, I'm just going to fire off the rest of my rounds. I do think the Magellan at this point is way out of bounds, isn't it? Probably is. I would think so, because it led me straight to the Salamis, although I bet I could have looked up and seen the Magellan and taken care of it. But I do think I was still right to do this. And now, even though I'm taking out this Salamis, I notice I'm at half health, and I know something is killing me. So that's a moment where I have to turn around and say to myself, if I don't take care of these mobs, I'm going to be in bad shape. So I had to take care and just thin the herd a little, because if you don't, you're just going to have so many units firing on you that by the time you turn around that Magellan and you know it, you're going to be at a quarter health. You don't want to be in the situation you're in. You can lose runs that way. So sometimes it teaches you right away. Sometimes, even though the end goal is in sight, if you don't take care of the mobs around you and take care of what's immediately threatening your life, you can lose runs on something super risky. I mean, yes, it's risky. Yes, it's the fastest way to do it. However, as I've learned from watching plenty of people do speedruns, just because it's a risky strat doesn't mean it's a consistent strat, doesn't mean it's the best and most efficient way to do it. So now we're on for the Solomon mission, where the second part of this, you better just be clenching your butthole if you hadn't been clenching it by that. It's just to excuse my phraseology there, but it's just a way to say that if you're not careful, especially with what's going on here, you're going to get hurt. So you have to pay attention. Again, this is another one where the first phase teaches you the same thing that you see from Mission 3, which is be mindful of your surroundings. Even though you're trying to get the battleships and the battleships take you to the next phase, sometimes you do need to take care of what's around you. Especially knowing when the ships are so far out of range and you do have the machine gun, not really a strong weapon. Yes, you kind of have a little more margin for error, but at the same time, is that margin really worth it? Especially knowing when you're waiting forever and a day on these ships that are moving so slow. I mean, you could probably help it by turning up your brightness a little more. I turned it up just a little bit because this game is kind of naturally dark, and the Elgato doesn't really do a good job of bringing light to it, so you kind of have to turn it up, and it looks better. Looks better than where I saw it, which is great. And, you know, of course, on my TV, when I saw it super bright, it's like, oh, good. So we'll call the support in. He'll try to draw some of this fire for me, which is great. But I still have to be mindful of what's going on. I still want to try to clear these units as much as I can, because they will just fly in. And then the other thing is we have to try to protect this Musai. It doesn't really fall below half health, or I've never seen it do it. But as you see, I'm starting to get hit when I'm trying to go for the out of bounds on the Salamis. I get it, but 2 ball shots just took me down. So I just turn around and I look. I know I got gym units and ball units going after me. So before I take care of the next ship, I'm just going to clear those units out of my way. I would rather be safe than try to go after this next battleship, which I know I can get. And see right there, I missed a few, had a few hit, missed the next few, but it's fine because it came in range anyway. We were good to go. But see, that's the one time where I took the safety over the, you know, I could hit this, but if I hit half health, I'm not going to be in good shape for the second part. And this right here is really cool. The fact that you get to fight right beside the Big Zom. And knowing what happens to the Big Zom, even though in Shin Matsunaka's story, this actually doesn't happen. Because he wasn't there for the Battle of Solomon. But in this situation, he is. So it's just the one time that a what-if scenario, not counting the Thoroughbred what-ifs. This is the one time that a what-if scenario is actually counted as canon. And counted as part of the run because, I mean, you have to play through it. But anyway, if we sit here and we wait, although I think I kind of screwed this up and don't get the best shot, you see it fire off, and then if you look, beautiful. The game did a really good job at just playing the big cutscene with the Big Zom where he fires out all the beams and then everything just massively blows up. But in the series, maybe only a few ships die, whereas in the game, it's just like, it feels like such a massive spectacle. Like, man, he took out a whole fleet with that. What the heck? He's so strong. So anyway, we see these gems coming in. They're just trying to fly out of bounds to deal with the Big Zom. We're going to clear out as many of them as we can, and then when we do, we're just going to get to a point where we wait. And it's that point where we're waiting that we kind of want to realize where we're at. Because, see, we're already out of bounds. We can't go join, probably for the better. Once I see Slager's unit go down, which is that core fighter or G fighter or whatever he's in at this mode, I wasn't paying attention. I'm starting to back up. Because when the Big Zom goes down, Amuro comes into play. And Amuro hits like a Mack truck. So what I want to happen is I want to back up far enough to guarantee Amuro goes in bounds and stays in bounds, because if he ends up out of bounds, I'm playing with fire. I would much rather him come back in, get the beam hawk or heat hawk hits. I know what this one is. This one is actually not a beam saber, it's a heat hawk. I would rather go in, get the melee attacks, because they're more consistent than the machine gun against him, especially with that big shield against it. I'd rather go in, get those, and then get him out of the way, and then the rest of the mission takes care of itself. Because if I didn't, he's got a beam rifle, I've got maybe 5 hits. And then not counting the fact that he has the beam saber, if he comes at me with the beam saber, I might die in 3 or 4 hits. So it's a matter of risk and reward, and just that's the safest, most consistent way I found, which is bring him into you, get the melee attacks, knock his health down where he needs to go, make him get out of there. But once we get through here, it's like cake. It's cake the rest of the way until near the end of the run. Well, you know, I say that, but there's plenty of parts that you still have to worry about. This is one of them, slightly, in a way, because you have to be mindful of the units that are around, knowing that we're not going to have a shield, knowing that even though we have a beam machine gun that does reliable damage, we don't have 100 shots, and then knowing that there are units out there that just do really nasty damage. But this is the last hurrah of Shin Matsunaga, and you just sit here and you feel like, whew. I will say this right away though, look at that thing. Look how beautiful that thing looks right there. Say what you want about it being all white. I mean, that unit in general, I love the way it looks. I appreciate the way it looks. We're not going to see anything like that until a little later on in the run, until about the end of the run. And even then, I still think this is the Gelgoog Jaeger. The one I'm thinking of is a Gelgoog Marine. I don't think we see the Gelgoog Marine type. I think the Marine type is different from the Jaeger, isn't it?
I've heard about you. Crimson Light.
And again, this is another thing that makes me appreciate Ace Pilot Mode a little more, is that they have these little special interactions and cutscenes that make you that happen. He doesn't even ask for your help. He just shows up like, hey man, I'm here to help you. I'm Johnny Ryden. And it's like, dude, I just played as you in the last mode. That's so cool. So, when it comes to Shin Matsunaga, now that we cleared the battleships aren't really going to be a big threat. The ball units aren't going to mess us up so much as the gym units that come in, because now there's going to be upgraded gym units. There's going to be gym command units and gym sniper units. We really want to be mindful of those when they come up, especially the sniper units. So there's a gym command unit. We want to focus those right away. So sometimes I will use the beam machine gun right there. It does a lot of damage. If they hit, I guarantee kills and I can switch back and forth. But when most of them are carrying shields, the most I can really do is break the shields. So I'm better off when they're in bounds, unlike that. I'm better off just firing the special and going from there. The sniper units, if I let them last, they are going to eat through your health. So if you see the sniper unit, prioritize it right away. Do not let it keep going, because as you saw, it's only firing a few shots, but I'm about 3 or 4 hits away from dying if I don't clear it. So I know right there, once I hear that final part, there is a second part to this mission. I don't remember what you have to have for it. I think you have to beat the game once, or you have to have a certain score, or a certain health as well. But thank God we don't have to play it, and I know I don't because I hear that final cutscene, which is great. So I just get through it, and we're good to go. So we're now going to enter the very short, very brief excursion into the Blue Destiny units. And by very short, I mean we're literally going to get 2 missions with them. We don't... If there's one thing I would say about the Blue Destiny units in this game, you know, it's nice to see the exam system, and to play as them is great, because there are There is one upside to using it for the run, which is unlimited mobility, which you'll see in a few minutes. You don't really get to learn a whole lot about the exam system. You get maybe a few lines of development, but it's one of those where you just kind of feel like, for how well they developed the rest of the Xeon guys, and even the little flashes that 0083 gets at developing those characters in their major moments, you know, you don't really get that same pleasure with the Blue Destiny units. But anyway, so mission 1, you have to be really careful because literally your transport ship is paper thin. So I'm gonna make it a point that anything that says unknown, that right there, that is a missile turret. That thing right there carves through your ships. It carves through your ship's health, and as you see right away, you're told to get sent right away to take care of the units, and then they turn around and go like, never mind, man, we need you to come back. So what I will do is I just go right after the turrets that carve through the ship, and then what the point of this mission is, it's really to introduce you to the exam system. It kind of spawns everybody away intentionally. So what I'm doing is I'm waiting for that third special to come in, so that way I can turn on the exam system. And when I get it, after a while, I'm just going to turn it on. Now I don't have a thruster gauge, which means I'm free to fly around as much as I want and go from there. Which, even though there's some units that end up out of bounds, for the ones that are, I can just cover track to get to them, especially knowing where my ship is at the time and how fast it gets to where it needs to get to. Fortunately, when it does get out of bounds, they don't start targeting the ship, they start targeting you. But until that happens, your ship's just going to start just eating damage. So you have to play a little bit of a balancing act where you have to mind what's going on with your ship and also take care of the units. And so it becomes more important that as soon as you get those 3 stocks for the specials, you turn on that exam system and you get your ass moving. You don't stop. Beam rifle, and again, you see the beam rifle and the beam saber, really no difference in what you do there. They both do about the same damage, and this mission teaches you right away, if you haven't really got it before, you know, well, if you're flying around and you have no thruster, why wouldn't you use the beam saber anyway if it does some of the more consistent damage, since you got to be up close? Well, again, you know, if you're doing the same amount of damage one way or another, what does it really matter? What would you rather do? Would you rather hit it from 500 feet away and kill it in 2 seconds, or spend that extra 3 or 4 to get in range just to kill it in the same amount of time? So those are options you have to weigh. But once you get through that mission, it's a slight annoyance. But once you get through it, just like most of everything that you get slightly annoyed about if you're me, once you get through it, you're fine. And now this mission pretty much writes itself out kind of the same way as the earlier Char and Amuro excursions. There are mobs that spawn around, but they're not really worth mentioning. They don't really get in the way, and this guy we're going to face, he's not really, I mean, he does damage, but he's not so much to the point that I kind of start sweating like, Jesus, what do I have to do to beat this guy? And then you do have to be careful as well, because you do have your guards, you have your transport ship in the background that you have to take care of. So what it is it's just really, you know, I would say it's a race against the clock, but I'd say it's just kind of there. The mobs aren't really going after it, and even then you can take a lot of the guesswork out by just taking care of this Blue Destiny unit in front of your face. Just take care of that Gundam and get going. Well, it's not really a Gundam, it's a gym class, if I remember correctly. Yes. So just get it out of the way, and that'll be all we see of the exam system. And we're done. And that's the last time we have to see it, and now we enter the final stretch. And this is where, you know, if you haven't been convinced before that you kind of need to be on point, this is where you're going to see it, because these are where your biggest saves can happen, but also your biggest nightmares until the end. until the end, which the biggest nightmare you want is actually the biggest blessing you could get, or you're trying to avoid is the biggest blessing you could get. So, Kouraki. We're starting with the 0083 guys, and I do like the fact that in that Ace Pilot mode, a little trick you can see, you don't have to scroll all the way down. You can hit up and scroll right to where you want to be. It's great. Saves a little chunk of change time. Not a whole lot, just a little. But we get there, and now we get into a fight that's kind of like the Big Row fight. Except the thing is, imagine the Big Row has a hitbox maybe the size of the Brawl Bro, if not a little bigger. And we're fighting on the battleground that, one of the battlegrounds that we don't get to see on a dang old, the versus mode, where you actually get to make teams of Ace Pilot suits or support units and get everybody together. Like, you could have Amuro fighting in the Burning Gundam. Yes, the Burning Gundam is in this game, along with a few units from Wing and Seed and G Gundam, since I mentioned Burning Gundam. Burning and the Master Gundam are in here. But anyway, I should mention this as well. I do enjoy the fact that even though we are in a place that's supposed to have gravity, we're just sitting here floating. I mean, you have to think of it same way as the sword fight, the same way as, why did I go all the way through Texas Colony and not even say that? Things I think about while this is going on. So, again, this is like the Big Row fight you've seen with Amuro. You kind of have to be mindful of what's going on. It's a mobile armor. It's going to fly the same way. It's going to use its thrust. It's a bigger unit. You have the speed to stay with it. And the good thing about it fighting on the moon is it can get stuck on the ground. So it makes itself open for free punishes. And then sometimes you get in that situation where, hey, I just need a few more hits. And then it starts barrel rolling out of everything. And you're like, come on, man. The good thing, though, is that you don't have to witness it blowing up. It just fades to a point. Once it fades to black, you're through that mission. But it's less of a headache than the Big Row missions because of the fact that the hitbox is so massive, and when it gets stuck on the ground, you get a chance for a free punish. So now we are through to Mission 2, where this is the... I wouldn't say it's tricky, but it can be. It's one of the more interesting missions where now you're using a beam saber, and only a beam saber. Well, I say that, a beam saber and Vulcan machine guns. And they are kind of useful because thankfully most of these units we're going to run into are very weak against Vulcan machine guns. And some of them are going to be out of bounds. So what I'll try to do is, really, if they're inbounds, you want to try to hit them with the beam saber, but when this happens where they're clearly out and they won't come back in, you got a few choices. You can back up and make them come in, or you can just use the Vulcan machine guns and take them out that way. A little bit of an annoying time loss if you do that. It's a little slow, but to guarantee that they come in bounds, would you rather just kind of come back and let them in? Yeah, maybe. Or you can just take them out again with the Vulcan machine guns, and then everything else will spawn relatively in bounds, and then you go from there. As you see, two of them flew past me to go right after my ship that I'm supposed to be protecting. And it's fine, because that just guarantees they stay in bounds. So once again, this is a mission where you kind of have to be careful with your thruster gauge. You don't want to overuse it, because if you overuse it, the minute you go flying at somebody, you don't have enough thrust, your slash will fall short. So if they bring out their beam saber and that happens, you're going to be punished, and you would rather that not happen. So the machine guns they're using can take out your shield, but it's fine, because by the time you take care of enough, we're going to get to the special part, which, again, this is one of those parts where when you're a kid, you're like, man, I couldn't beat this because it's so annoying. But what it is you get a beam rifle, you get one shot, you have to line it up, and I think it starts lined up for you, which is great, but I believe where it hits you at, you kind of have to make a small adjustment, because if you fire it straight where it's at, you will miss. And if you do miss, then you instantly fail the mission. Because that one shot you have in your stock has to hit that ship. And if it doesn't, you may as well just reset. Or just restart that part of the mission, because, you know, it's like getting a game over. But it's at least the one time you see it, you know you screwed up. It's like, crap, I'm going to have a long load time coming back in. Okay, just hit the retry and move on. If there is one thing I could say about Code Rocky's mode, is that I don't know if we really needed to see this SEMA fight. I get it, because you kind of want to use him to establish what's going on in the 0083 world, which is great. But at the same time, I could have probably seen this one time and been okay. But, I mean, hey, it's fine. He's kind of like a third main character to play with. Whereas if Amuro was the first one to play with White Base, and then Lieutenant Ford was the next one to play with, and Thoroughbred, he's the other one. So it makes sense. I'm not going to complain too much. You know, minor complaint again with me. I don't know. So we're going to have two phases to this. We get to meet Seema Garahal for the first time. She is the last one we will see at the end of this run. But just so we're clear, she is a greedy, dirty, conniving somebody. And it is well established through the first two modes with Ko and soon Anavel Gato, who Seema is and why she is not to be trusted. So for this first phase, we're just trying to get through the Gelgug Marines. We want to take them out, get them out of the way, and then Seema shows up. And I personally do like the way her mobile suit looks. That Gelgug Marine Commander type. The colors look weird, but at the same time, I think the unit itself looks so cool. And really and truthfully, just something about me when it comes to, I don't know if I sound like a Xeon purist saying this, but I do kind of prefer the mobile suits with the machine guns compared to the bazookas and the beam rifles. However, there is one exception with Gato that I do love that we'll see later on. So Seema goes out of bounds in this part. She can do that, but fortunately, because we have the beam rifle, we're doing a fair bit of damage. She does come back in, thankfully, with the beam saber charge, which you gotta be careful of that too. But thankfully, and why is she still doing damage? That's the one thing I noticed right away. But after a certain point, the game's like, oh yeah, she's done. So it gets to the cutscene that lets us through, or the voice cue that says, okay, mission's done. She starts leaving, and we go from there. She's really easy to take care of, because fortunately with Ko, you do enough damage to most of the ace units that you're going to get through these first parts. And then the last two missions, if you thought Amuro was bad, just wait till you see what can happen with Ko Rocky. Okay, so we are now at the part where Anavel Gato is back and aiming to get his revenge for Xeon by launching a nuke at Kanpei Island, the former Solomon. So the first phase, we're just going to clear through the resistance, and then after the big bang happens, we turn around and we have a little bit of a skirmish, because it turns out we've been holding a grudge against Gato the whole time. He stole one of our units, just like I steal your girlfriends on a regular basis. No, I don't, by the way. I am not that good looking. But anyway. So, again, a lot of this, like I mentioned, does play itself out. And it's one of those parts where you see little parts like this where it's like, okay, can we get to the point? You know, it's one of those in the run where little stuff like that happens, but however, it is still important to the run in a way, because in these big fights, you have to realize if you take too much damage heading into these big showdowns with ace pilot units and you're at half health and they can rip through your units with the greatest of ease, you are going to be in a bad way. So it's very important that you have to kind of know where you're at, manage your resources, take care of your enemies when you have to, be mindful of everything, and just go from there. I mean, really, it's that simple, you know? I mean, it sounds simple anyway, and it is simple. But, you know, it's not rocket science. It's just,
Gundam Unit 2?
you know. But anyway.
That was very
So, after heading into every major battle, I still check my health. I check my shield. I check my health. We're in the easy side of it. And again, this is like I mentioned earlier on. This is the one time we're going to see that Vulcan machine guns are really, really, really strong when we get to play as Gato. But we'll get there when we get there, which is after we finish with Ko.
one of many.
So, same idea. We do have a special, unlike Gato. We can use it. It is very useful. I try not to use it a lot for the same reason that I don't consider it good to use. And as you see right there, that's exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to watching your health. Because if you don't, you will die. You will lose runs over this. So in a way, even though I hate those early parts, those early phases with the mobs, you grow to understand it's a necessary evil, because if you don't play well through those first parts and you wonder why you can't get through that boss fight, it may be because of the way you're playing through the first phase. Just a little food for thought. So now we enter the part where we have two of the strongest units in the game. The Dendrobium, especially right here. This thing is massive. The beam cannon kills most everything in one hit. I should mention this. Like its counterpart that we'll see with Gato, the main weapon is useful, but the sub-weapon, the secondary weapon, the missiles are really useful. Especially so against Gato, especially with this ship right here, or this part right here, because they have eye field. We have eye fields to start. So what that means is every beam attack that's going to threaten us, everything will bounce off of us like rubber until we just run out of shield. Now the machine guns and the missiles will still do damage to us, but anybody who comes at us incorrect with a beam, we're just going to sit there and laugh at them and be like, really? But most everything we shoot with the Dendrobium is going to go down in one hit. We're not going to really use the special attack for right now because there is a special purpose for it. And to use it against these units right now would be kind of a waste. Doesn't really make anything faster. There is the use for the special attacks that make everything faster, but we're not going to use it right now. I should mention, this is a good time for multi-target. If you can get everything in sight, use your multi-target. Now when you see your ships, don't mess around. Just fire your main weapon at it and be done. But when you have the mobs spawn around you, because you have to take care of them too, try to get as many as you can in range. Your main weapon will take care of them, but if you can help it, get your multi-target on, just take care of them all. And you also have to be careful too, again, because you have a big unit. Even though you do a lot of damage, your hitbox is big, massively big. If you're not moving around like you should be with a mobile armor, you're going to take a lot of free damage. And I don't try to move around with it because I'm not used to doing it, especially when I know I just blow everything up in one hit. That's just me, personally. Okay, so now we enter the second phase where, as you see, new unit, Who Dis, Gato, got an upgrade as well. And again, you also have to be mindful of your surroundings because you can be in that situation where you bump into something and take a lot of unnecessary damage. That's just the downsides of having a big hitbox. We're going to wait for Gato to get in range, so we're going to take out a few ships on the way, and then when Gato settles, what I'm trying to do here is if I nail this special, then what will happen is Gato will be taken out. All his health will go away in one hit, as you see right there. That, my friends, is the terror of the Dendrobium. And I think the idea of it is, if you get caught in that special, it's the demolition chain of the dendrobium going off. So if you're in that radius, it's like the demolition chain going off in it, and you're getting hit with missiles and everything else in between. So it makes sense that you go down in one hit. It is to our use when we're playing as Ko, and when we're playing as Gato, we need to be very mindful of it. But when we're playing as Seema, well, let's just say let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see. So, skip the cutscene, and now speaking of Seema, we're going to run into her. This is the one rare time we have a double boss fight. I do think we have a double boss fight before, don't we, in this? No. Well, yeah, technically, if you count the Shar and Lava deals. So I'm going to take care of the Musais to bring Seema out, and then we're going to go from here. Not even going to worry about the ship below her, because to get to the next part, we're going to take her out. So I'm going to try to do the same thing, which is hit the special on her, which I got plenty of it, and I got her to the point where, yeah, she was done, but I needed to guarantee it. See, that was a good special. Now we'll take care of her ship. Get out of here. So, that special attack, if you nail it, is very useful for getting you out of runs. It's a very useful tool to have when you're playing as Ko Araki. Very bad to play against it. See, I thought I would have got it. It looked good at first. I guess I needed to go a little more to the right. But anyway, hit that one time. Still almost done. I'm surprised it didn't finish. But it's okay. I get a few more shots in. All in all, that was a pretty good fight.
What?
And as you see right here, running against these slow splits, I'm 7 minutes ahead. And then I just start eyeballing it like, wait a minute. And then you look at the current pace as well, and you're thinking, wait a minute. But if you stay at your current pace. But knowing what's going on, it's just one of those where if you've been looking at it a while, you're just like, all right, I got a good run going. But then knowing what's fixing to happen next, you're just like, man, if I get out of here with a good time, I'm looking at potential new PB. And even then, I'm looking at it bug-eyed, because if I stay at that current pace and get that 237, I'm going to beat my PB, which at this point is the world record. So anyway, we go into Gato, and this is the one time where I absolutely adore a bazooka, because in the case of his Rickdom, it's a beam bazooka, and I just think that weapon is so baller. I mean, I understand some people who say, like, when they just heard me say, did he just say baller in current year? I go, look, I'm white, I get it, but at the same time, man, leave me alone. It's just my way of saying I think that something is so dope. But I know somebody's going to go, who says baller anymore in current year? But anyway, so the point of Gato here is, this is the mission that he gets his moniker, the Nightmare of Solomon, from. All we're just going to do here, we're not even going to worry about the mobs. We're just going to go right after the battleships. We're going right after Salamasis. That's all we're worried about. Clear the battleships, secure our ship's retreat, go home and live to fight another day. And we do just enough damage to get the heck out of Dodge. You kind of want to stockpile specials, and I don't know why I fired that special anyway. That's okay. But we get through this guy right here, and we're done.
Fall back. Great job, Lieutenant. You should give up now.
You would think you want to stockpile specials. I don't know why I fired that special. It was just a bad decision. You cut through the ships like butter with your main weapon anyway, and you just move on. Now, this is where you think, okay, this is going to be pretty easy for Gato. I do like the fact that it goes over the fact that, yes, he was a soldier that survived the 1-year war. Yes, he fought for Zeon. And then it establishes his pride as a soldier and why he's so dead set on revenge. so on and so forth. But if you're not paying attention with Gato, wow, it's like same time I've said if you're not paying attention. But, I mean, a lot of this game, you just think the smallest little things can get you. Just the smallest little things can get you. You know, same thing with any game, you know, but same thing with any run. But it's just, to me, looking at it in hindsight, seeing the things that make me just bug-eye and go, wow, you know, if I didn't catch this before, I was in bad shape. So I want to try to take out these gym command units and gym snipers again. Not a lot of battleships are going to come through this time around. There are 2 phases to this. This is, in my opinion, the hardest Abawaku mission of the Abawakus that we have to play. Even harder than Char's. Well, I don't know. With Char, you can get kind of unlucky. Speaking of which, I do love the fact that for all the trouble of making you go through Gato's beginnings as a Xeon soldier, you do get one last cameo from Char. And he just sits around, just blowing everything up in the Xeon. You have boss status all around. Just like, oh yeah, I'm fighting with a guy who moves at 3 times normal speed. I feel like a boss. I'm just going around blowing everything up with a guy who just fires beams from his hands, and they're like, oh God, help me. But anyway, back to my point from earlier, Gato's Abawaku is the hardest one to deal with. And golly, you see that special. Just, that's not fair to deal with right there. Normal pilots wouldn't have any idea, like, where the heck are all those beams coming from? And they just get carved up like butter. His mission is the hardest one, Gato's. This Abawaku is the hardest one to deal with because just about everything does damage to you at this point. And you have advanced gems coming at you. And then if you're really trying to go for the A rank or the S rank, you're going to be in a bad way, especially when you're having to deal with the gem sniper units, and they're just so nasty to deal with. They're so nasty. Yeah, you get a shield, but at the same time, how much is that shield going to help you when that sniper unit just fires at your right leg and you wonder why your health is going away? Now, the good thing, though, is that if your health gets below a certain point for Phase 2, to make the missions go faster, you can call your support in. And Carius, Gato's right-hand man, is absolutely useful. He's not like any other, I mean, I would say he's not like any other random unit. I mean, he would be if it's one of the stock in-game units, but he's an actual character. He actually has things he provides on the field, and I should mention, the game does go based off skill sets of what happens in the game, so you get certain buffs depending on what your characters go through with versus mode. Like the new types, they get certain abilities to use the Psychomu system, or they have advanced senses about them. There are some where you start with specials. There are some where if you're in a team, you get increased damage, or you're better at shooting, or you have better thruster gauge, or you have better support units, strength, stuff like that. Just really good things that are useful. And Carius with Gato does a great job, because while you go around blowing up these ships, he works the same way that Lieutenant Luce works in as a G04 in the Thoroughbred run, which is while you go around destroying these battleships, he's holding off all these mobile suits at bay. And when you don't have an idea where they are, if you can find Carius's Rickdom, he'll take you exactly where you want to go without even having to press L1, which is great. So all the ships are done. I'm still at low health, and the good thing though is that since I have Carius here and now all the battleships are done, Carius is just flying around like a madman, going after every mobile suit in sight, which is great. I don't have to do anything, even though all these public units are here, and I'm trying to find where the next mobile suit is, just pressing L1 to retarget, using the right analog stick to manually do it. And I mean, you just rather press L1 if you're going to find it. Just a little trick I learned where if it makes you target on something, press L1 again. Usually L1 will take you to the target that you want to go to. L2 takes you off. L2, I do believe, re-engages after you do that, but you're just better off pressing L1 and letting off L1. But the game is so wonky about getting you in the right spot when it comes to targeting. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, you want to target this public unit that's 300 feet this way instead of the mobile suit right in front of you to the left.
It's now or never.
So from this point, again, now you get to see the units aren't spawning, but Karius takes me exactly where I want to go. So once I see him go down, I'm like, oh, that's where the next unit is. And we keep going from there until we clear everybody. And we do. So we get out of there, and we're in pretty good shape. So it is one of the beauties of getting to Phase 2 with Gato, so it is something to consider. You may want to take enough damage in the first part, but not too much, but just enough that you get to be able to call the support, bring them in, and then you can clear the second phase like nothing ever happened. So now we enter Mission 3. We don't have a special attack. We don't have a main weapon. Well, we do, but we don't. This is the one time where you're going to see Vulcan cannons just obliterating everything, and I think it's the most comical thing, especially if you sit here and listen to the voice acting for the launch scene right here, where if you listen to Gato's voice actor all the way through the game, it's when it gets to that point for this mission where you're just sitting here like, wait a minute, did they get somebody different, or did they just use like what happened? Did they use a different actor, or did they just have a different take? What goes on? And by the way, speaking of which, while I do appreciate what this Gato did in the game and appreciate the job he did, and I think he gives new life to the character, and I think he kind of nails it, at the same time, after being spoiled on hearing the delivery of the Gato in the original Stardust Memory series or mini-series, you just go, man, you think so differently of the characters. I mean, that's a great thing of voice acting in general, but just a little thing. So if you have enough ammo, you could, I've never seen it done, but you could just blow up all these ships just like, yo man, you're done, you're done, you're done, but instead I'm just going to fly by 3 or 4 of them and go straight to the next fight with Ko Rocky. So we want to be mindful of Ko because he has a beam rifle, he can hurt us, and he can fire off a special. The good thing though is I know my Vulcan does damage, and I know my beam saber is reliable. I know he takes a lot of damage too. This is the one time we're okay with fighting Ko. Now, the future fights, as I'm trying to say, the future fights, we want to be mindful because we know the power he has. We've seen it on display if you paid attention at all during the last missions. But the big thing here is we got to get through this with ease. We got to get through it. And we will. So here we go. I'm having a really good fight. You see his beam rifle does damage, thankfully. My shield is catching most of it, but he is still getting carved up by the Vulcan machine guns and by the beam saber. And then he comes back firing at me. I can't get the last shot I need. And then there we go. Because I don't get what happened there, but he ended up weirdly out of bounds, which, again, those can happen. But you wouldn't want to be out of bounds with only the Vulcan machine guns to rely on, especially if you're waiting for them to reload, because then you're counting on being able to finish him from out there. So it's to one of those points where you kind of need him back in, so I guess you kind of have to back up, or you kind of have to hope he just charges in. But anyway. So now we are on to the Neue Ziel. Probably, I don't know if it's the second best unit. It feels kind of clunky to me, and if you ask me, I think its secondary weapon is much better than its main. Its main weapon does damage, but the secondary does more consistent damage, especially when the main weapon has a slow fire rate. But it's okay because we get the trade-off of having a useful melee, which now we don't have to be exactly in range, we're gonna make them get these hands when we have to. But when we see these battleships, we have a very useful special attack where we don't have to meander around. We're good to go. So the good thing about the eye field in this instance is that it is very useful to us, whereas with Ko, it wasn't before because everything we were seeing was bazooka, missile, or machine gun, whereas now we're still dealing with gem units and other battleships, so guess what we're mostly going to fire when we're on the Earth Federation? Beams! And a whole lot of them. So the eye field is just going to say, nah son, we're alright. So the one trick I figured out to get through ships without having to use the special is just fire enough missiles at the ship and then fire one beam, and 9 times out of 10 that'll take care of your problems. But you can also just use your special attack and you'll be okay, because with Ko we are gonna kinda have the problem of using the special attack against him because, like we've mentioned before, he has an eye field. But these ships, if these mobs do become problems for you at all, like they're just getting in the way with beam sabers or they're just becoming an annoyance, you can take that little extra second to just turn around, get them out of your way, and just keep focusing on the battleships. And now that we are in combat with Ko coming up, we want to be very mindful. He can use the special attack against us. Right now, he's just going to kind of chill out. Going to blow up one ship before he turns in. We don't really want to fire the beam at him, and this is the other reason I say the secondary unit for the Noisiel is better than the main. The missiles will actually track the enemy, which I think is great. See, now I see him turn in. I'm going to be absolutely careful. He takes out a ship. He's in. We want to be careful because right there he could have fired a special. He didn't. I don't know why he didn't. It was lucky he didn't. So when he goes away, the strat I've come up with is I'm just going to I'm going to fire missiles, and then as soon as he turns, I'm firing my special at the same time he fires his. Sometimes I mess up on it. That time I did there, and I only fired my main deal. But as soon as he comes close to me, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make him get hands from me. I'm going to make sure that as soon as he comes to me, I'm going to get a free punish for every time he comes through. And then I'm going to keep firing missiles and go from there, rinse and repeat the process, and we get through pretty consistently. I feel like that right there has gotten me through the fights with Ko and just made me go because everything is a big sigh of relief in that point. Now we have one more mission to deal with where, again, at the second phase, we have to go through Ko again, but now we have a big task in front of us. So for some reason that goes against the entire canon of Stardust Memory, we lose our eye field, which, I mean, I get it. It gives us a harder challenge for the second phase, which is great. I'm good with it. Ko didn't have his shield when we had it. Why do we get ours? But at the same time, come on, man. But anyway, so we are trying to stop this big thing right here. This is the solar system. It's a whole set of mirrors that launch a huge beam attack. We are trying to stop this thing from firing because what the Federation is doing, we haven't learned from history clearly. We're trying to drop a colony on Earth. They're trying to blow it up before it gets there. We don't want that to happen. So we have a certain time limit, which is like 2 minutes. We need to clear the command ships so that thing can't get a clean shot. The thing is, those ships take a while to spawn, and while we're sitting here trying to take care of them, we have mobs just coming for our head over and over and over. We don't have a shield. We have machine guns coming after us, yellow goo units coming after us. The gem units can hurt us now. So in a way, we have to take care of the mobs for conservative health, or conserve our health, and then we go from there. But the fortunate thing is that we do get to see where the control ships spawn from. So as soon as we take one out, all we're doing is we're taking care of some mobs, and then we're going to turn around, find where the control ship is at, take it out, and then we will be able to move on to the second part of the mission. There's the last one coming up. I take it out, and we have plenty of time, so I'll just spend some time taking out whatever mobs I can while we go on to phase 2. And now this is the part where you say to yourself, you've been locked in, you've gotten this far, it can all go away, because even though I'm sitting here at half health, it can all go away if I eat a demolition chain. And he starts right there in front of us, so I'm just going to throw some hands early, get the missiles in, but again, I'm working under the same premise. And I'm trying to be careful because he had a little delay right there before he launched the special attack. So again, I'm being ready for it, I'm moving back, I'm boosting back, and now he falls under the same path. And now everything I did in the first fight before, I'm just going to repeat that. And I know he doesn't have an eye field now. So, the good thing is these specials are going to hurt him if I can actually fire them as well. If I would have fired it the first time, I would have had the mission done, but that's okay. Those missiles will find him, and we're good to go. So once I get through him, that's that big sigh of relief again, just like, yes, it's over. Because now we have reached the final part of the run. SEMA. Now, SEMA doesn't mean we get to slack off. The first 2 missions, well, I'll put it to you like this. The last mission, we are asking for one certain thing to happen, and we're going to try our best to accelerate the process. But before we get there, we have to play through 2 missions, and compared to what we have seen before in this run, they're like child's play. They are literally like child's play. Nothing big, nothing major. We can handle it.
The Principality of Z.
So, I do like the fact that even though she's set up at as this conniving, backhanded, shady backroom dealer who sells out her own army just for her own personal gain, you do see in a way why she's doing it, because in a way she's seen the fact that she started off working for people who were knowingly gassing their own people in the name of using their homes for military acts of violence against the Earth Federation. Just total dictatorship style stuff that's disgusting. Just stuff that makes you think of Hitler. And really and truthfully, speaking of Adolf Hitler and fascism, there is one scene in the original anime, in the original series, that's a bit on the nose, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. I mean, I'm not.
This is a war, but
It's a bit on the nose. It's one of those that makes you think like, man, they're really trying to get them over as an evil family, aren't they? And if you don't see that from before, then you read enough of the backing stories where you just learn about it and you go, dude,
who likes this?
that's messed up. Especially when you learn about why Char is in Zeon to begin with. So we're seeing all we're trying to do is we're just trying to clear the few battleships and a few fighter units, and we're going to move on with life. That's all we're really doing here. No big deal. Easy. Takes care of itself. Easy for that guy to say when literally she knows the whole reason of what's going on, and she has nightmares about that stuff to this day. When you see the cutscene with her just freaking out, that's where it's like, wow, that same thing still haunts her to this day. It's amazing, isn't it? But anyway, we go into Mission 2, which is the only other time we're going to see anything out of 0083, which we get to replay that skirmish with Rocky Squad. So we go through his 2 friends, and then we get him at the end, and then we're out of there. And then we go on to finally open our arms and say, yes, this run is in, the end game is in sight.
I won't let you get away!
Okay, so at first we deal with Lieutenant South Burning in this gym unit. All we're going to do is just run him down. The machine gun does damage, but the beam saber also consistent, especially knowing he has a shield. We get him out of the way. Keith, same idea. Doesn't really have a shield, but again, beam machine gun compared to beam saber, the special attack is really good for getting him out of the way too. So all I did was get him out, and then I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go after Ko. I'm going to try to get him the same way, but he also has a shield, and he's also tougher to deal with. Probably the only real pest that we have to deal with. He can be pesky, he can be troublesome, but he is nothing compared to the evils we've seen before, especially when we get specials like that and just get him out of the way. And then here we are, the end of the run, the moment we have all been waiting for. So now we are at the point where everybody is against us. And either we are going to succeed by taking out the Dendrobium in the name of the Federation, or we are going to embrace sweet, sweet death. And I'll put it to you like this. We are going to embrace sweet, sweet death, because knowing that Mr. Uraki's special attack in that Dendrobium is a one-hit kill if we're in range, we want him to target us. But see, the thing is, Ko doesn't specifically target us right away. Not until our support ships are down. So, all I say to Ko is, if you don't mind, I will gladly help you out. Take out my own ships, because then we'll get to the point that you are guaranteed to come after me, and we will be fine. So I take out my 3 ships. I see him right there. He fires off his special. I wasn't in range. I feel that that is unlucky, but it's okay. Because look, I can turn around. He hasn't fired a special. And then I'm just trying to get close. There he is on the comeback, and boom. Run done. And as you see right there, 235-10, literally over 3.5 minutes saved. What a beautiful, beautiful run. And the whole point of what I was running against was just to get something lower than 244, and I end up having this. I'd love to go through this again, because the mid game was kind of sloppy and there were some sloppy parts in the end game, but to get that run the way I got it, I mean, I can't really complain. That was great. That was a great run, all things considered. So there it is right there. I know it got a little long at the end, a little winded, but I hope this was cast in a positive light for you, made you really think about Mobile Suit Gundam Encounters in Space in a little better light than it did before. And what else can I say? That's it. Thank you for watching. I know this may be a long shot for it to get involved in a game's done quick or anything like that, but all of us Gundam runners, we're probably going to get together and we're probably going to try to get something through, because somebody tried to get a run through for Games Done Quick Express. Somebody tried to get a Journey to Jaburo out there, but hey man, that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, that was beautiful. It was a great run. I've got nothing really to say, and I'm happy I got it in, and I'm especially happy that I lowered my PB as much as I did. Again, my name is Joshua Bishop, and if there's only one more thing I have to say other than thank you for taking the time to watch this, if you stuck around with me so far. God, I don't get how you people for those games done quick marathons where you only have one guy calling the whole thing. I'm not talking about a couch and then the runner chiming in a few bits and pieces here and there. I'm talking about one runner just talking to his couch and saying, hey guys, you're just a front row seat. I got all this. I just want you to stay there and look cool. I got this. I don't get how you do it, but I have a bigger appreciation and respect for you. So with that said, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and hope y'all enjoy the rest of your day.